So
Picking you up at all, Jacques?
You weren't picking me up at all.
Even Jock, I can hear you, but it's super quiet, like just barely.
Yeah, it must be on the computer phone. I had it. I actually worked on it before the meeting.
is YouTube back on?
Yeah, we're good to go, Mary. YouTube's back.
Okay, anytime, Chris.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. I think the first thing I'll do is just give an update on economic activity in the county and our new revenue projections. Just set kind of the framework for where I'm getting the revenue and the budget from. So let's see, I'll first start off kind of with these numbers up here. I know there's a lot of numbers, but this one right here, 144.46%, that's all of the projections across all of our sales, use, and excise taxes, the average projection above 2019. So that's pretty good there. And then we've got, standout is that TRT is looking, I'm projecting about 57% increase in TRT over 2019's levels. So some fairly substantial increases. We did get August figures in, and they bounced up. So in July, these figures right here are relative to 2020. July was the first month in 2020 where we recovered after the COVID closures. And so we could start actually making meaningful comparisons between 2021 and 2020 starting in July. We did see some pretty significant drops in the growth in July, but then it popped up again in August. And so August numbers are back up to being fairly high. And so for the remaining 4 months that we're waiting on, I took the average versus 2020 of July and August and carried that through the next 4 months to come up with our projections. And these are all month by month, which is necessary because of the unusual COVID circumstances and whatnot. But these graphs right here are each individual tax. So this August value on all the graphs and prior are actual figures that we've received, and the remainder of each of these from September through December are my projections. So you can see we're still looking pretty good on most of these, general sales and use taxes, et cetera. Restaurant tax has been a little bit unusual, and so you can see it's kind of a mixed bag so far, and the projections are lower for restaurant than the remainder of most of these other taxes. Same with some of these car rental, but TRT is still looking pretty strong, et cetera. So we kind of dipped down in July, but bounced back in August. And so my remaining projections are kind of a split between those 2 months. I think, pretty reasonable, considerably more detailed than we've ever had to do in the past. So
Sorry, Chris,
anyway.
did you send this to us, or are we just looking at your screen?
No, you're just looking at my screen. I haven't sent this to you.
Okay.
And so that's just where, the majority of our revenue is going to be in these taxes. Of course, there's property tax as well, but that's going to be close to the same as prior years because we didn't do a property tax increase. So I'll stop sharing that. And move in, I want to give an overview of how the compensation study works and give you just an understanding of the process for how we got to where we're at. So let me pull up another screen. I've got a lot of spreadsheets open here that I need to pull up. So it starts off with, this sort of spreadsheet where all of these figures here are, various elements of market data that we get through a consultant called TechNet. So, for each position, like here, for instance, code enforcement. So we pull a whole bunch of market data from this company that we subscribe to. And so we have all these data points. And then for the most part, the majority of employees, we just run an average off of this. And so these are going to be, a mix of variety of counties and cities. Most of the data, though, comes from the Wasatch Front. So first and second class, third class counties, too, are a little bit more heavily represented in the data set just because there's a lot more positions up there. And so to keep that in mind, in the past, and just as a little bit of history, prior to about 2018, the county only did their pulled market data from fourth, fifth, and sixth class counties and averaged that data. But, quickly became apparent that paying according to the lower class counties didn't work for Grand County because we're a resort community, our cost of living is very high, our wages are relatively low, and that drives us up into, probably the 95th or greater percentile for cost of living relative to wages. So we abandoned using fourth, fifth, sixth class counties and moved into this concept where we're using all the positions and coming off of averages. So the averages and in some cases, we've made some equalizing adjustments, and so we use a percentile of the market data if we have to equalize similar positions with other positions that have relatively equitable levels of responsibility. But at this point, in all cases, the figure is drawn from within the context of the market data itself. And so I try not to go outside of that context at all. And then there's another spreadsheet that this gets all consolidated into, which is this one where all the results, so we've got 1042 positions listed, and all the market data results funnel into this spreadsheet, which then go into a third spreadsheet. They're all linked together. And this is where most of the actual results, or all of the results, are calculated. Let's see if I can figure out which one it is. Okay, so there's quite a bit of math involved with this, and I'll try to explain it. But
can you zoom in? We can't really see that.
What's that?
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, let me try.
Is that spreadsheet that you sent us the last one that you showed?
No, that was actually a consolidated version of everything. So it's separate from any of my working worksheets. So well, let me just fix this real quick and I'll show you.
Okay. I had just a few questions on that, like with just the titles of the columns, just so that I could understand them.
Yeah, and I'll switch over to that in a minute. So basically, you won't be able to see anything on this, but this is the spreadsheet that has all the math and all the data plugged in. And the spreadsheet that I sent was a sorted version of this. But for the math to work, all of the market data has to be sorted in ascending order, so from lowest to highest, otherwise the math doesn't work, which is really hard to actually read or interpret. And so I copied this over to another spreadsheet, sorted it by department, and then cleaned it up and sent it to you. So that's kind of the cleaned up, sorted version of this working document. But in here, let me just scroll over. Can you see that better? This graph. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
So this blue line is a graph of the market data results for all the positions. And this orange line is representative of an adjustment, a mathematical adjustment that I made to the lower end of the pay scale. So this side of the graph, the axis is dollars per hour. So this is the $20 an hour level right here. And this side of the graph is grades, relative grades. And so the two axes are different. And this yellow line are the grades. And so this yellow line is tracking with this axis. And the blue and the orange line are tracking with the dollar per hour axis over here. So what this is showing, you know, is what I was discussing before, that our specific local market has seen a big explosion in jobs between, you know, like $15 and $21 an hour. And so the market data that we get, you know, isn't going to give us any information about how to react to that, to our local circumstances. And so what we needed to do is be able to adjust the lower paying market data up to account for our local circumstances and the pressure on the market in that range. And so mathematically what I did is create a couple of algorithms that allowed me to increase, you know, some of these lower ones and then blend it in with the rest of the pay scale as best that I could. And so that's what's happening right here. This was the original market data, and then here's the adjusted market data. And so we used, for the purposes of establishing the grades for the positions, we used this orange line as opposed to the blue line. And you can see that the orange line blends into the blue line right around, looks like $22.72 an hour or so. And so that's my way of making the adjustment to the market data to make those positions competitive in our local market, workplace market, and then blend it in with the rest of the pay scale so we don't have a big incongruity, you know, right around this point right here. We needed to make sure that these lower paying positions got up to a competitive level, but we didn't want to create a circumstance where the mid-level positions were now making exactly the same as the entry-level lower positions. And so we needed to blend that whole thing in with the rest of the market data. Mm-hmm. And then this yellow line is showing, you know, where the steps fall for all these different positions. And so one of the things I was doing when I was, you know, adjusting these parameters here was to look for a decent, you know, advancement of grades as it goes through, because we don't, you know, we're definitely flattening out the pay scale, especially on this bottom side. And, you know, there's still inevitably going to be some compression that occurs, but it's considerably reduced by using this process. The only way to totally avoid compression would be to adjust the entire pay scale all the way to the top and bottom in the same way, but we'd never be able to afford that. And it also isn't necessary because there's not a, you know, a high proliferation of upper level jobs in Grand County that, you know, everybody's, that they're, you know, it's just not relatable to the pressure on our local market. But this is, you know, making an adjustment up in here and blending in. So all the positions were evaluated, you know, based on this orange line. And then the grade for that position, you know, was assessed again from its current grade to whatever this grade is. And then that was the results that I sent you, was the results of this. And so I can switch over to that.
Chris, before you do that, I have a quick question. I thought we were going to bump the lowest paying jobs to 20, but that's not true per that graph.
Well, let me bring up the other one and I'll show you. I mean, there's a few of them that, like high school apprentice and such, that I felt didn't need to go all the way to $20 an hour, and some other part-time positions, et cetera. So the vast majority, and this is starting wage. This is all, that was all relative to the respective grade step 1. So, obviously if somebody's got more than one step, they're going to elevate above that starting position also. And almost everybody has more than one step. Let me try to find my other one that I sent out. So this is kind of hard to see too. I realize there's a lot of numbers, but so I'll explain the columns. So we've got the current step and the current grade. That's where the employees are at right now. And then we have this column, which is closest grade. And so there's 2 different columns in some cases. And so the first column that doesn't have a star, so all the columns that have this little star are showing where there's a proposed new position or a reclassified position, and in some cases a change in the number of hours from where we're at right now. So this column is relative to, basically keeping the same employees, same job descriptions, but just applying the market data adjustment and a cost of living adjustment. This one with the star is showing, is calculating the scenario where new positions are approved or reclassified positions are approved or a greater number of hours are being provided to part-time employees. And so those are the difference between, the columns that don't have a star versus have a star. The star is showing the proposed. The vast majority of positions are the same because there is no proposed new position or reclassification. And so for the most part, the difference in the total cost between the kind of sticking with the employees we have versus approving new employees and new reclassifications isn't reflected in most rows because there isn't a proposed change. So we've got, and then we translate it, into hourly rates so that we can actually see dollar figures instead of just looking at grades and steps. This diff column will, show the difference between the current grade and the proposed grade. And so, like for instance, in this scenario, we're proposing to go to a full-time position in the commission's office instead of part-time, and change that, create a new position essentially that's a full-time office manager instead of just an administrative assistant. So in one scenario, just keeping the part-time administrative assistant, it would be a 2-grade change, but then there's another proposed position that would take its place, and that's a significant grade adjustment, and it shows the difference. But like I say, for most positions, it's going to be the same. And then we have the hourly rate version. This is, what their current grade and steps hourly rate is. And then these 2 new hourly rates would be, again, relative to just keeping the same employees or approving the new reclassification or new position. And then we've got a number of hours proposed to be budgeted for. 2,080 is a full-time position, and then there's a variety of different numbers that can be for part-time. I think the max that a part-time employee can log in a year without going full-time is around 1,500. And then there's a calculation of a 5.4% cost of living adjustment. In years past, we've matched the national inflation rate for our cost of living adjustment. And if you don't at least match the inflation rate, then the purchasing power for your salary will go down every single year. It's kind of essentially like getting a pay cut every single year if you don't get a cost of living adjustment, because the cost of goods goes up, but your salary stays the same, and so you end up not being able to purchase as much with the same amount of money. So matching inflation is what we've done in the past. Right now, 5.4% is the national inflation rate, so that's what I propose for the cost of living adjustment. It's at a 20-plus year high right now, and could go even higher from what I read, but that's where it's at right now, and so that's what I proposed. Then the salary, this is just the cost of the salary adjustment itself, And then there's also a cost that goes with increasing salaries. So everybody in the county kind of has a different Utah retirement system tier, and that's a percentage of the employee's salary that the employer has to contribute to their retirement. And then there's also some other elements of benefits that are relative to the salary. And so I plugged in, not on this spreadsheet, it's kind of hidden here, but on the other main spreadsheet, you know, the percentage of benefits. And so that was calculated based on the COLA and the salary combined. So that would be the cost to benefits as well. And then we have the exact same scenario with these three columns, but these would be for the proposed positions, the reclassified or new positions. And then we've got total cost here. Does that explain well enough the columns, Sarah?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's just total additional cost
Yeah.
off of the 2021
And in the case of a totally new position, like the airport has some, so you can see this is this whole position right here is a new position proposed. So if you don't approve the proposed position, then the cost is zero because you're not approving the position. But if you approve the position, in this case, what I'm calculating is the full cost of the salary plus the full cost of their benefits, including health benefits, which health benefits are not affected by the salary. But obviously, if you're creating a whole new position, you need to factor in the total salary and the total benefits. And for a proposed position who we don't know, who they're going to be or what their benefits selection will be, I usually go at the middle of the road cost for health benefits, like the two-party high deductible, just a middle of the road benefits calculation there. And so for the totally newly proposed positions, it's the full cost of that employee salary and benefits. And then when, like for instance, with the airport, when you see these negative numbers, what Andy is proposing is to get rid of some part-time positions and replace them with these full-time positions. And so you're seeing the effect also of eliminating some positions and adding others. So the total cost is the net between eliminating positions and adding new ones.
So I see a new position in the Economic Development Department called Film Commission.
Yeah.
Is that separate from Biga's position? That
No, it's the same position, and so the city has been her employer, and so if we take on the Film Commission, she would be a new employee to Grand County.
okay. I just saw that in the budget also listed as a double contribution. But we can
Say
talk
that.
about that later. Never mind. I just also saw that listed in the budget, but not as a salary, I think.
Oh yeah, you're probably right about that. So yeah, there probably is actually a doubling up because when I went to I plugged in the full cost, anticipated cost of the Film Commission, and then I also added it into their salary adjustment. So you're right, there probably is a bit of a doubling up of the salary cost in the economic development budget. So that's actually a good catch there.
Nice
Part
work,
of
Chris. This makes a lot of sense.
Thanks, Ann. I think we're going to have to kind of dive into this in a little more detail at some point. Also, just the elected official proposed salaries are based on data that we get from Utah Association of Counties, and then we can go over that also in a subsequent follow-up workshop. And just to point out also that the Budget Advisory Board decided to not approve an a salary adjustment for the commissioners, but rather just go with the COLA. And so for the commissioners, they're treated a bit differently than the rest of the elected officials. This column right here is the one that the Budget Advisory Board approved. And then this one is treating the commission the same as the other elected officials with regard to the methodology for how I came up with the salaries. But obviously commissioners are different all across the state. Some are, most are 3, not 7, et cetera. But, those are all details that I don't think we can get into now. But we will schedule, a follow-up workshop to dig into the details on any of this, plus elected official salaries. And elected officials also have a somewhat different process. Any adjustment to upwards, any upwards adjustment anyway of an elected official's salary requires a separate public hearing from the budget public hearing. But we run them, essentially in the same meetings. So we'll have a budget public hearing and then separately an elected official compensation public hearing.
Is that for each specific elected official, Chris?
No, you can
Bundle
have the public hearing for all of them at the same time. But even a cost of living adjustment requires a public hearing. Okay.
What does SBDC mean under
small business SB
development
small,
coordinator or something?
Small business development coordinator? It's a state level program, and usually that employee is employed by a university. We had some discussions with USU, and they tossed out the idea of potentially hiring that position under Grand County's Economic Development Office, which kind of makes sense to me. And there would actually be some potential funding coming from the state for that position, although we'd probably have to subsidize it. And so, that position, I'm not really entirely sure yet what the revenue side of that position would be. But that would be bringing in that small business development specialist that would be working sort of under the state's program. And it's a statewide program. It's not, totally sorted out, but if we want the option to do it, we have to have it in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover on the salary adjustments part right now? Before we dive into a summary on the rest of the budget? Okay.
So just to be clear, Chris, is the recommendation or what's being proposed in the tentative budget, does that include, I might have missed that. Does that include all of these potential adjustments, or is there something showing that scenario in terms of what is in the tentative budget? Are we still deciding that?
So yeah, all the proposed adjustments are in the budget, just as kind of like a one big number right now for each fund, just to get them in. Most of the data still just lives in the spreadsheets, and once we finalize it, then I'll go, Renee and Mallory and I will go to get to work plugging it into the salary and benefits lines in the actual budgeting software. But it kind of has to be done manually, and so I'm going to wait to do that until until we're sure what we want to do.
Okay.
What are they called in each fund, or what?
Yeah, I'll have to show you because I just used a random unused account in each fund, and so I'll scroll over to it. And there's still, quite a bit of refinement that's going to need to happen. So I just barely got done with this over the weekend and sent it out to department heads, and so you know, there's probably going to be quite a few tweaks and error corrections and whatnot that are going to come up in the next couple weeks. And so I'm going to try to get most of it, you know, taken care of in the next week. But we might want to, you know, tackle the employee salary adjustment part, you know, somewhat a little bit down the line to give time, you know, for me to work with department heads and elected officials on getting everything fine-tuned. But right now, it's, you know, it's rough, it's tentative, it's not a totally complete product, but try to get as close as we could. And so I guess the caveat that I'm giving is just, you know, expect to see some more tweaks to that when we get to our workshop on it.
So do you have a total? I guess I could just total it in my own spreadsheet.
Oh, for all of it together?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, let me find my other thing here. Let's share that screen. So this I haven't really updated the main spreadsheet yet with the little tweak we made to the commission. But these two figures right here are the total across all funds.
Which ones are?
Can you see it over here?
Oh, this one, the one, okay. Total cost.
So we've got, so this is the one without approving any proposed positions or reclassifications. 1,784,166, and then the proposed version is 2,277,582. So, I mean, I could do a quick little calculation on what the difference is between proposed and sort of status quo. So the proposed reclassifications and new positions, a total 493,416, and that's across all funds. The spreadsheet that I gave you has it, I think, has it broken out by each fund. And so this number right here is a little over by, you know, like maybe 30,000 or something, because I haven't made the adjustment to the commission, the tweak to the commission salary adjustment on this column yet. So it'd be about 30,000 less than that or so. But again, you know, this is a tentative budget, and so getting close right now is the goal, and then, you know, there's going to be several things we need to tweak and fine tune before the final.
So
Yeah.
as far as process goes, like, is this a time where we would talk about those specific positions and the changes? Or are we going to do that at a different time where maybe we could hear from folks proposing the new changes?
Well, yeah, I was expecting to just give an overview this time, and then schedule workshops for going into details on all this stuff. And especially focusing on the proposed changes, you know, the reclassifications and the new positions. And so every year in the past, we've had a very specific, you know, agenda item addressing the proposed reclassifications and new position requests. But yeah, we don't have time to really dig into details now. Approving the tentative budget is no commitment. It's just basically sort of like the transition point between the executive duty of producing a first draft, and then it switches over to the legislative side, where now the commissioners start making decisions about, you know, the rest of it and cleaning things up, finalizing it, all that. So there's no commitment in approving a tentative budget. It's just part of the statutory process.
And then, Chris, I had a question going back to your methodology. When you were showing that spreadsheet you just had up originally, and there was that place where the two lines intersected, and that's kind of like where, you know, an attempt to address the compression and stuff. Was that intersect a pretty obvious choice to come, or was it just kind of like, oh, it could be a little to the left, it could be a little to the right? Does that question make sense?
Well, yeah, so the reason where it is where it's at, for one, is that I was looking for a nice, trying to get as many steps along the way and not have this be flat with a whole bunch of positions all in one grade, So keeping, like some division and upward mobility, that was one, objective. The other, obviously was to make sure that most of the bottom end positions that are full-time are going to, end up around $20 an hour at least. And then the third main consideration was how much it was all going to cost. And so as you can see when I switch over and show you the bottom line, that, I came up with something that we'd be able to afford without going broke. So that's another major
No, I
consideration.
appreciate that, but I'm just kind of curious, like, what if it extended one grade further or ended one grade sooner? Like, how big a swing when it comes to cost and affordability does that create?
Well, we can, we can tweak things later. I'm not really prepared to start messing around with these parameters yet. But, at some point, I can show you the changes. All these little parameters here are just, sort of feeding into my algorithm for how this adjustment is made. And so it gives me the ability to tweak it. Like this orange line can creep up the pay scale further before it intersects, or it can go down further. And I can also raise this end up or down without affecting this side. It's, there's just a lot of, all these parameters were built just so that I could get this, in a good spot. And this is the best that I could get it, at least, as far as actually being able to afford this salary adjustment and not running.
I'm really impressed by it. That's why I was curious if it was an easy kind of like, oh, here's the mark to hit, or if it was, gosh, it's just got to be someplace, so I got to decide at some point.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy actually to change this stuff around, but not so easy to get it to where all the positions fall in a way, because you have to look at these different categories of grades and then go back to the data and look at all the positions that fall in the grade, and then say, are all these positions, at a, close to equal levels of responsibility and duty and job qualifications? There's definitely a possibility that you could put this somewhere where you have the grade falls in an awkward place, And so you have to revert back and see, all right, let's look at all the different positions that fall in grade 7. Does it make sense? Do they all belong there? Do they fit? And that's part of the process too. And so it's like I would make a little tweak, go back and look at everything, make another little tweak, and then also just tracking total costs against our bottom line.
Yeah.
And so that's the methodology there, and this is where I ended up. It could, certainly creep up further, but it gets expensive fast when you start doing that. And and then I wouldn't go much lower, otherwise the compression problems are going to, get worse. Like I said, there's already going to be some compression in the middle. There's definitely the grades of these positions are going to be closer than they are right now, but that's kind of unavoidable, And I think it's a natural consequence of deciding that you're going to start paying people a living wage too,
Yeah. Well, I know that it's not an ideal thing, especially when you get these curves and steps and jumps. So if you were looking for feedback from the commission about like what that kind of model and where those intersects should occur, I would need some more kind of background on it, but just hearing you talk and all the considerations, it seems like, I, for one, am comfortable with the kind of these assumptions or targets or goals used in the methodology to kind of get the numbers to where they are, what you're showing us today. So
yeah, we can go over this, and then once I can set up like, a copy of this whole thing, and then we can sandbox it too, and start moving things around just so you see what happens when we change the parameters.
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of something that's more suited to a workshop that's dedicated to just dealing with this
No,
stuff.
my question was more if it was an easy decision and if you felt comfortable with it. And I kind of hear you saying that this was the best that seems like there wasn't a lot of question marks to get to this point in terms of being here now. So.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, getting this adjustment how I wanted it, and building all the math and everything. I mean, I probably spent a month and a half on it, so it's like a lot of work.
I don't need to sandbox it. I was just unless you wanted feedback.
I mean, just for the purposes at some point of showing you how it works, we can go over it. I feel like it's a pretty good spot, especially considering, like I show you, we're balanced now, but if we get much more expensive than this, we're going to be running in the red a little.
Yeah.
Have some wiggle room right now, but my experience with this process is once you throw out the first draft, the suggested adjustments that are going to come at me are going to drive the cost up, not down. And so, I would expect that by the time we're done, it might be maybe 200,000 or more higher than what we're looking at in what people are wanting to propose, et cetera. That's just my experience with this process from when I did it in 2018, 2019. And so I left a little bit of wiggle room, for negotiation with department heads and elected officials, et cetera. But we're very close to running in the red if we get much more expensive. All right. Are we ready to just move on to kind of a major overview of the rest of the whole tentative budget?
Is everybody ready?
All right. So I'll bring up our budgeting software. There's a couple of different ways I wanted to look at. I'm just going to get rid of some of these columns right now for clarity's sake, because we're only really wanting at this point to look at 2022. And one thing I just wanted to point out is that the 2021 budget that's in the tentative budget is just the beginning of the year budget. I still need to create a 2021 amended budget, which we'll also have a public hearing on. And so as soon as I get that done, I'll send it out. But I usually, try to wait as long as I can, because the more actual expense and revenue data we collect, the more accurate my 2021 budget amendments will be. We should be able to get one more month's worth of revenue data in before we have to approve the budget, which will give us a little bit better idea. But anyway, we're looking at the bottom line on the general fund right now. And
can you zoom into that at all?
No, this program doesn't allow me to zoom, unfortunately.
Is this part of the stuff you sent us? It doesn't look like it.
No, this is the actual software that I use to do budgeting.
Okay, so it's not one of the spreadsheets you sent us. No. Okay, thank you.
This is actually a different scenario than what's in the tentative budget. And so I just want to show you what's different about it.
What is that number? Sorry.
So that's the balance right now of the general fund. So basically, let me get back to it. So, and this is just a convention, and it's kind of weird, but in government accounting, revenue has a negative sign. So this is showing that right now, and and I guess I need to explain a little. Let me just go back and explain something real quick because it'll make it easier to explain what this number means. So right now, I'm not including one-time grant funding in that figure. So we've got about $531,000 left on a CARES Act grant for the airport, which can offset our airport operational expenses by that amount next year. That's not plugged in because it's a one-time grant that we're not going to have forever. We do have another one that we may get, but eventually that will be gone, and it's not something we can rely on. Also, the ARPA grant that the county got, $947,300 is what we're expecting next year. And, you know, this can be used to cover lost revenue from 2020. I didn't plug that in either because it's, you know, it's a one-time funding. We're just going to get that one more time and then it's over. And then on the expense side, I kind of canceled out also all the capital project requests, which I'll go over here, but substantial capital project needs for next year. The total about 1.5 million, but that's not plugged in either. And so what we're looking at now, and to go back to that bottom line figure, is that without that, those one-time funding, those big one-time grants, plus the, you know, the big capital expense, which are generally one-time too, although we have capital needs every year. We're looking, right now there's $54,784 revenue over expense. And so, you know, with a $18.9 million budget, you know, that's pretty much dead on with being balanced. So this is the figure we're looking at without any one-time grants and without all the big capital projects. And so it gives us an understanding of where we're at relative to our ongoing revenue and our ongoing expenses. And so now, just so that we understand that, so we're looking at about $55,000 of revenue that hasn't been budgeted for yet. Now, if I go back in and plug in those one-time grants, then it's going to show you what's in the tentative budget. Save that and then go back and put the transfer in for the capital project. And then get rid of this contribution to the fund balance, just so I can look at the bottom line again. And so this, save that. So we've got about $450,000 in this scenario of revenue over expense. But you have to realize, of course, that most of that is one-time money. And so we obviously don't want to bloat our ongoing expenses up to meet this figure and zero this out, because then when those grants are gone, we're going to be $500,000 in the hole, you know, or so. So, you know, I just wanted to kind of give you the both perspectives on the bottom line relative to no one-time funding and no capital projects versus one-time funding with capital projects, and then what's left over. So, I mean, it would be my suggestion, and we can talk about this later, what to do with this money, but my suggestion would just be to transfer it over to capital projects. And, you know, I'm still kind of building our capital projects list, but we've got really, truly massive maintenance projects coming up, very expensive roofing projects, lots of HVAC replacement, et cetera. So that's the general fund, that's the one that has the majority of the county in it.
So does that include the salary bump, and to
Yeah.
which degree? The asterisk?
Mostly the asterisk, yeah. Actually, all the asterisk. In this case, like I said, and I'll show you where that lives in each fund because it's not clear on the tentative budget. Let me see if I can remember where I put. So in this case, in the general fund, I just picked like a random unused line. This is where the salary cost lives for now. It's just a random line in the general fund that I just needed to get that cost, that expense into the budget.
Mm-hmm.
What will happen when we approve it, though, whatever those costs are going to be, will be actually entered in employee by employee, and then will show up in the salary and benefits line items in the actual budget. But right now, they just live on this one line item.
Is that just part of them?
Say that again?
Is that just part of them?
Yeah, this is just the general fund part. So
Okay.
each fund has its own cut that I put into it, each fund. So each one of our funds has to be balanced to zero. So, net zero revenue and expense per fund. So even though the general fund, has a whole bunch of different departments in it, you can see all these are financial departments, and in some cases, actual organizational departments too. They actually all share one budget. It's like one big budget that all has to zero out. And so, like a lot of times we might, argue about which one of these departments to put an expense in, but the reality is it doesn't matter because it's a general fund expense. And so it needs to be, categorized appropriately. But from the financial perspective, whether an expense is in one department or another, it doesn't make any difference to the bottom line. So we have to net zero all of these funds. So we've got the general fund, which is the big one, the main one. And with health insurance, Dana brought up before that the renewal figures were actually lower than what was approved for this year. And it turns out that our health insurance provider messed up and they put their bid in based on last year's figures, an increase over last year's figures. But, and we verified this, they're going to uphold that bid proposal, even though it was a major mistake on their part. And so that means that our benefit costs are actually going to go down a little bit instead of go up. I'm sure that they'll get us eventually about that. But so basically the health insurance account, I just kind of left the same. Didn't monkey around with that. It's more or less the same as it was this year.
Hey, Chris, could I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Chris Kaufman. Just when we're thinking about the overall bottom line, one thing to keep in mind is that if we have a balanced budget, then we are basically planning to put some money in the bank for that year because we never spend the entire budget. There's always a percentage that isn't spent.
Yeah. It's actually, what you might call contingency has been creeping down a lot because I've, been forcing department heads to budget much closer to prior year actuals. And so the contingency is there, but it's creeping down because I'm budgeting, more and more according to prior year actuals with very little cushion. But, and I think that's a good way to budget anyway, because, we can pull in money from the fund balance for unexpected costs. And that's what our fund balance is for. That's why they call it sometimes rainy day fund. And then stormwater mitigation is the total budget for next year is $1.2 million. And so what that comprises essentially is a $400,000 contribution to it last year, a $400,000 contribution this year, and then another $400,000 contribution next year. And that's all coming from the general fund. There's not really any tourism tax type money that can go to that. So this is largely, coming from our property tax and our 2 unrestricted sales taxes. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate that we don't have a lot of other options, but stormwater is pretty important. It's looking like we'll probably get some assistance from NRCS for Pat Creek, maybe FEMA for that brick grant too, but both of them require matches. And so we'll have money for a match next year for those projects, plus any other project, stormwater project, just keeping motoring along, filling out the priorities on our storm drain master plan. But we're probably going to prioritize Pat Creek. But to the greatest extent possible, I like to leverage this money, even though 1.2 million might sound like a lot. Our total cost on our storm drain master plan at this point is going to be 60 million plus, and so it's a tiny amount compared to the real costs that we're faced with. Then we got B roads, $4 million budget, and so this includes salary adjustments, and then one of the issues with the salary adjustment in B roads is that kind of sucked up a lot of the money that could have been transferred over to Grand County Active Transportation and Trails, and kind of sent that fund a little bit into the red. I'm working with Christina on a legal opinion on how we can spend TRT, and there is a fairly significant balance in the TRT fund, and so if it's legal, and we can figure out ways to use that money to offset some of these other costs, we might be able to get even a little bit better position in some of these funds. The restaurant and car tax, projecting about 1.5 million in revenue, and just want to go over real quick, some of the major expenses. So what we're proposing to do for the most part with the TRCC is the car rental and restaurant tax. And so the Grand Center is considered a convention center, at least we consider it that, and it is used for that. So we're using TRCC to make the debt payment on the Grand Center. And then for the most part, we're using it to offset costs for the operations and maintenance of the Grand Center and operations and maintenance of the Old Spanish Trail Arena. And so that's the lion's, share of where the TRCC money is going. We also make a small contribution towards the fireworks display, and then take care of Star Hall's expenses out of here also. So that's that one. Then we've got Travel Council, which is generally going to end up being, this is going to be like, if I have the time, I want to totally redo this fund and accounts. The bottom line is going to stay essentially the same. But this was, our economic development department, still called Travel Council in the budget, but total $3.7 million revenue and expense. And the accounts are all messed up right now, and it's kind of hard to even see the various categories of spending. But there are some things I want to point out, because they may, depending on the results of the legality of how we can spend TRT, we might need to change some of this. So this is the portion of the TRT, that we're saying is going to be spent for rec, film, and conventions. This would be where we would put in, expense for local event funding, film commission. This is our contribution that we propose to make to the rec district for youth sports programming. Moab Art Trail, Trail Ambassadors, and then this is the amount right now in the budget anyway for the responsible responsible recreation trail funding. Then we also approved a resolution to, over time, put in $250,000 for the pilot shuttle program in the city. I haven't adjusted the 2021 value yet, but they said they probably need about $20,000 this year, And then I said, well, let's split up the remainder over the next 3 years. So this will be like a 3-year running obligation of this 76,000. And then right now I have a placeholder in also for this, 50% of the cost of the stage that was requested, this movable stage for local events. And I did talk with the city, and they're considering funding part of it too. And I'm sure that they could get, some other private donations, et cetera. And so, but that's kind of contingent on whether it's legal to spend TRT on it or not. I don't know yet.
Mobile Convention Center.
Yeah. So then we got travel council admin, which is right now is, a lot of the overhead, but there's also like advertising costs mixed in, national promotion. Right now we're looking at about 440,000 for ad, like ad spends, and then some other, the account names. I kind of had August just say rename the account, blah blah blah. So right now, I guess one of the things to make clear is that the totals of these line items are gonna, be the same, the bottom line. But what I'd like to do is create a whole new fund and reorganize all these accounts, in a way that makes it really easy for us to run a report. So we have to send a report up to the state on how we spend this money every year. And right now, because the accounts are all mixed up and don't match the statutory divisions of how this money can be spent, it's really hard to actually create that report. You can't just run it straight out of the accounting software. You have to move all these things around into their appropriate thing. And then Thompson.
Chris, with that advertisement chunk, is my understanding correct that that's kind of like frozen? Like we can't go any lower than that, or is that?
Well, the way the law reads is that you can spend, all of the money on tourism promotion if you wanted, but where the restrictions lie are, so like economic diversification. I kind of skipped over that. We can go back to it, but this fund represents 37% of the total TRT that we collect.
Okay.
And no more than 1/3 of that can be spent on economic diversification. And so what I do is I build up, I'm basically trying to maximize how much we can put into our economic diversification program. And then no more than 1/5 of that 37% can go toward rec film convention. And the remainder, would be what would have to go toward the tourism promotion part. And we're, like I said, there might be some, depending on the outcome of a legal memo, how we arrange these things may change. And Kevin had some suggestions in the Budget Advisory Board that we might need to, bring up. And so this fund is, for one, it's going to change, just from the standpoint of how it's organized. But for two, we probably have to workshop, how this money is being spent, and also it might be a discussion about policy too, about, well, if we say we're going to budget this amount for ad spend, how does the messaging get approved, and all those kinds of things. So it's not just a financial discussion, but sort of a policy discussion too. So this is a little bit up in the air, but it's a balanced budget at this point. It's good for the purposes of getting a tentative budget approved, but we could potentially tweak this a lot. The other thing is that there's a fairly considerable fund balance. I would, say that would probably be at least $2 million fund balance at the end of this year, which is, $2 million that we could bring in additionally to this budget and then spend down in any of the ways that are legal. And so, that, and we may be able to, send more money to, for instance, Old Spanish Trail Arena, to the degree that they're engaged in programming that's compliant with various elements of TRT. regulations. Same with Grand County Active Transportation and Trails, et cetera. So there's some potential to pull money out of fund balance. Of course, that would be sort of one-time. We would consider that one-time funding, but it could help, for a while. But we'll have to revisit this. I think this fund and this whole economic development fund and TRT thing is going to have to be workshopped by itself, as well. Then Thompson Welcome Center is still a part of the budget because they'll have a little bit of money left over next year to spend down before they run out of money. And then after that, the state's going to take over the facility. The state already owns the facility. They just contract with us, but they canceled the funding. So we'll keep them working as a welcome center until the money runs out, and then the state's going to make it into a rest stop. So that's that fund. Like I say, I think that there's a lot of decision points in that fund yet to be made. I just want to cover it. One other thing also that I wanted to go over that's kind of hidden in the budget, you won't be able to see, Sarah, but in this discretionary line item in the commission's budget, it's really high. And can you see this pop-up screen that popped up? Yeah, I'll just read it off. Even if it's on the screen, it's probably really small. So within this 124,000, we have the normal 20,000 a year that we usually put in for discretionary. But then Sarah had some other budget requests, and this is where they're living right now. We've got the Renewable Energy Program, 6,000, Dark Sky Mailers, 3,000, Pack Creek Gauge Contribution, 15,000, Groundwater Monitoring, 10,000, 70,000 for monitoring well, and then 40,000 for a pickleball court contribution.
That one wasn't mine.
No, that's not Sarah's, but that was from Mary, I think. And so those are in the budget right now. I did talk with the city about, they said that they have some plans potentially to build pickleball courts too, and so I said we can make a contribution. So that's what that would be. So I just wanted to make it clear that those budget requests made it in. They're living in this little attached spreadsheet in this total 124,000. And then went ahead and budgeted for the legislative consultant again. At this point, I just put in the stock $750 a year for the commissioner's allowance, but we'll have to, revisit that according to how much everybody's expecting to travel. Some might need to have more than that, some less, But we can tweak that later. I just wanted to bring up that some of these I didn't forget about these budget requests. They're in there. They're just kind of hidden. Let's see, I better hurry up. I'm running out of time here. I'm going to skip over some of these other ones that are just, not particularly in any major points of discussion. See which ones I need to cover still. Parks, Recs, Trails. Right now, I'm budgeting to draw off the fund balance to balance this budget. Let me see how much it is. So we normally draw out of the fund balance because we bank money for paved trail maintenance, and Spanish Valley Drive Trail got a lot of 200,000, which gets carried over. But right now, we're having to pull 46,598 out of the fund balance to balance this fund, and it really doesn't have that have a fund balance for that yet. But like I said, I think I did ask Bill in the roads department to cut his budget some so that we could send more optional transportation tax over. So he's working on that, and that was also a part of the motion from the Budget Advisory Board that roads department cuts their budget so that we can send more money over here to balance this budget. Maddie also said that I got all the trail ambassador hours wrong, and so I'll have to work with her to fix that also, and so that's probably going to be an increase to this budget also. But like I said, I think we could. I'm expecting we can probably pull money from TRT fund balance and use it to fund the Trail Ambassador program how we need to and keep everything balanced. But right now there is a little bit of a draw off the fund balance. If we did this and it actually ended up happening, it would sort of basically be cutting into the money we saved up for paved trail maintenance, which we don't really want to do. Because we save that money up. Next year, for instance, it's going to be about $140,000 just for a seal coat on the paved path by itself, and then there'll be more expenses. So next year we'll spend down $200,000 and only replace it with $100. But that's why we save up, so that we don't have to cough up a bunch of money all of a sudden at once, and the money's just there. So I wanted to go over that. Another big thing to bring up is the library. They're property tax funded, and so when you're entirely property tax funded, the economy can grow. And let's see, it's still in the wrong thing. Let me go down to this. So the economy can grow, but because there's no sales tax associated, the budget doesn't really change that much. There's sometimes, a little bit of increase from new growth in the property tax, but generally not enough to keep up with, escalating costs of doing business, but especially when you consider a big salary adjustment. So what's happening with the library is that in order to balance their budget, they're going to have to, we're projecting that they'll have to draw about $99,000 from their fund balance just to balance their budget and afford to do the salary increase, which means that the library is, they've got about a, $600,000-$700,000 fund balance, but, when you take $100,000 out every year, it's only a matter of time before you become insolvent. So what this means, is likely a property tax increase for the library in the future if we approve the salary adjustment. And that's just because of the way that they're funded entirely by their own property tax. And then one last thing I wanted to cover before we're done is just go over real quickly the capital project expenses that we have. So I have a big $12 million number in there, and there's a reciprocal revenue amount, and that's just if we decided to sell surplus real property and start building office space. That would kind of be just a big budget number to kind of cover that. If we don't sell it, then we won't spend the money. It's just in there to authorize us to go forward with that and bring the money in and use it. But this is the actual request from departments right now. The courthouse generator isn't working very well. The last time the power went out, it overheated and failed. That's pretty expensive, $100,000 for the backup generator for the whole courthouse and jail. Emergency operations roof needs some work. The mechanical room, which is basically like Matt's office, but that's where a lot of the utilities run through. There's a lot of water and hot water mixer, cold water mixer, all this stuff that feeds into the jail that needs a lot of work, and this is based on cost opinions that Sean got. And we've got HVAC units. This is only 4. But then I heard that the grants, this doesn't include the Grand Center. I think it's mostly courthouse HVAC. But the Grand Center, I hear, is having trouble with 3 of theirs, and may need to jump this up to 7. I haven't really heard back about that yet. Then the HVAC controller for the entire courthouse needs to be replaced. Matt has about $100,000 in IT capital needs. The airport capital, this is the total from Andy for airport capital, $321,000. There's a possibility of needing to totally put in a new fire suppression system at the arena. this isn't factored into the budget, but I just wanted to bring it up. Be, I think, a little more than 300,000 if we were to do it, but it's springing leaks constantly and needing repairs all the time. I didn't put it in next year's budget, but I just put it in there to kind of bring it up. 50,000 in other capital project needs out at Old Spanish Trail Arena. The total cost on re-roofing the Grand Center is about 300,000. We initiated 1/3 of it this year, so we're doing about a $100,000 project this year, and then, but we still need to do the rest of it, and that's probably another 200,000. So this is a big amount. And then additionally, when we approved the property tax increase that we went through in 2019, you know, we called out a need for a new debt payment for office space if we need to finance part of that project. And so part of the contribution from the general fund to capital includes this $250,000 for a debt service payment, which was included in the proposed property tax increase in 2019. And that would be, you know, like probably a 30-year bond if we did it, so consider an ongoing cost. But I just want to make sure that I continue to stake out that element of the budget and not let it get lost, because it's, you know, maybe essential to be able to have some money to pay a bond if we need to finance new space. So that's included in this request as well. So that's why the total request from department heads so far for capital is $1,283,000. Then you add $250,000 to that for what I was just speaking of, the debt payment. That's the total there of $1,533,000 capital.
So Chris, with that, you're talking about, you mentioned selling property to be able to finance the building, but this is a different option where we would do a bond service?
Well, I think it would need to be both, probably. So like the proceeds from selling real property, you know, would be essentially like the big down payment. And hopefully that down payment would be, you know, a lot more than a normal down payment, like 60-70% of the total cost. And then maybe, you know, like 30% of the cost would be financed.
Okay.
Depends on how much we want to sell, you know, and so it's just all kind of up in the air at this point. We'll have to revisit that conversation next year. But, you know, just in the budget, you know, just authorizes us to bring money in and to expend money. It doesn't commit us to doing that, though. And so that's why, you know, I included it. Whether it happens or not is yet to be seen. So let's see. Is there any other elements of this that any commissioners wanted to go over before we're done with this presentation? Trying to just hit the high points here because, you know, I could definitely go on and on forever, but we don't have forever.
I just had a question about the Senior Citizen Fund. Is that the Grand Center?
Yeah, and so the Grand Center is actually split up into two different departments.
And there's a community center?
So the Grand Center's total budget is the community center and senior citizens combined.
Okay.
And I think, you know, there's no real reason why they should be split up like that, but that's just how we inherited the accounting. A big part of the senior socialization services is funded via the Association of Governments. So, you know, we make a contribution to them, they make a contribution back to us. And so, you know, it's, but this line item right here is sort of our contribution to the ALG and the senior socialization. And so there's some agreements, you know, in place, but and I guess that's why this has got a different budget than the other one. But, you know, this senior citizens budget probably started when Senior Citizen Center was up on where the EMS building's being built now. And then after the Grand Center got built, they probably added this other budget on top of it, you know. I don't know. But those two together are the Grand Center budget. Anything else? you all want to cover? I think I hit most of the main key points with the tentative budget. And so the motion tonight will just be to, approve the tentative budget and schedule the hearing for December 7th. Like I said, there's no commitment being made in approving a tentative budget. It just kind of starts the legislative side of the budgeting process. We all good?
I think so. Where it is 6 minutes till 4.
All right, shall we take a little break before we start the other one? All right, I'm going to go take a break and I'll be back in around 4.
Thank you, Chris. That was very
Thank you.
helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. That was awesome.
I got kicked off. So anyway, let's take shall we take a 10-minute break and start at 4:04, 4:05?
I'll be here.
Okay, 4:05, we will begin. The time is 4:05. I'm going to open. Turn off my phone. The time is 4:05. I'm going to open this meeting of the Grand County Commission regular meeting. The date is Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. Present are Commissioners Tricia Dean, Sarah Stock, Jacques Hadler, Gabriel Wojtek, Evan Clapper, and Mary McGann. We also have our Associate County Administrator, Mallory Nassau, and our Commission Administrator, Chris Baird. Clerk Auditor, Quinn Hall. And I believe, I'm not sure, is Christina Sloan still on the line? She will probably be joining it. She'll probably be, I don't see her either. Okay, so we will begin with citizens to be heard. Mallory, are there any citizens to be heard?
Mary, I see Emily. Are you on for comment?
I am on for comment today. Thank you, Mallory. Hi, commissioners. I'm speaking as a citizen today. I will share that I have had several residents of Spanish Valley, Grand County residents reach out with regards to illegal camping in the Spanish Valley area. And I just want to note, I know that our law enforcement officers have a difficult job and a just tough moment, understaffed. And so this is not a critique of our law enforcement officers or our code enforcement officers, but there does seem to be a pattern of people abusing our lack of staff to enforce, to take advantage for illegal camping. I've personally made a complaint recently I've not seen addressed. And you know, what happens is people open up their homes to RV campers who stay for, in some cases, weeks at a time. I've seen weeks at a time. There's an RV parked in my neighborhood illegally in somebody's driveway who has a all-terrain vehicle that's substantially increased the noise in our neighborhood. And I also know outside of our neighborhoods where we've seen this issue, there's also a consistent pattern of illegal camping on county property, such as the town ramp, where we now have signage posted that camping is illegal, and yet we continue to see people camping there. I've personally observed, and my husband has observed, feces and other human waste, campfire rings of people using that for campfires. And in researching a unrelated question, I went out and actually talked to people who were camping there over the summer to understand their patterns of use. And these were people who had no interest in staying in an RV campground. These are not people who just don't have a place to park their RVs. And I just want to point out that when we don't enforce this, it exposes our residents to the burden of enforcement. There are questions of whether complaints are truly anonymous. So some people are afraid to inform the county of these issues. And it just allows the pattern to increase and expand, which will make enforcement even more difficult in the long run. But this is a priority. If we truly benefit, if we truly want to protect our neighborhoods in the county, especially in the Spanish Valley area, we need to take action on this. It's unacceptable. And I know that you all are focused on this issue, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention and hope that we see the opportunity for improvement in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Do anyone else? Sarah? I mean, Mallory?
Yes, I see Sarah on. Sarah, are you on for public comment?
Yes, I am. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Should I just go ahead?
State your name so that we can get it on the record.
Sarah Melnikoff. And I wanted to comment on the plans for Mill Creek. So Mob Solutions respectfully requests that the commission revise their letter to the BLM, urging public consideration of both the collaborative alternative and alternative plan A+, which was supported by Mob Solutions, Canyonlands Watershed Council, Living Rivers, and Project 1100. That was submitted to the BLM and the county on 10/28, which was late and did not give you guys a lot of time to look at it. I think by then you may have already had your draft letters to the BLM ready. While similar to the collaborative's recommendations for multiple areas within Mill Creek. A+ proposes an alternative to existing management and a less involved infrastructure commitment. We are hoping that not only the council, but the public will have time to review and discuss both of these alternatives within the BLM NEPA decision-making process. And we urge you to table the letter decision for today and consider your recommendation in light of both alternatives, the collaborative and A+. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Mallory?
I see Doug on, and it looks like he's connecting to audio. Doug, are you here for comment? Okay, maybe in the moment, if he is on, there's somebody here with the last 4 digits of their number, 0361. If you're on for public comment, please press *6 to unmute. Mary, I think that's everyone, though it does still show that Doug, his audio is connecting. I don't know if we want to give it a moment or move along.
Well, let's move along and if
I'm sorry, this is Cliff. I finally managed to get unmuted.
Oh, okay, Cliff.
Yeah, thanks. And I think Doug is attempting to speak as well. But anyway, I'm speaking for the Motorized Trails Committee today, and want to make sure that the letter we sent, it talked about the importance of Potato Salad Hill, not just as a rock climbing obstacle, because as your option B letter, it describes it as one of many obstacles, but it's the only obstacle that's close to town that can accommodate like 100 cars for spectators. And it's a contained area for that kind of activity to take place in a manageable way. I know that the sheriff's office and Andrea Brand spoke about the traffic. So from multiple perspectives, there's problems with moving the parking of hikers over to Potato Salad Hill if it's going to take away a lot of the parking for Potato Salad Hill, because the parking is kind of the point. But on top of that, so this your letter B, says not only should the parking move over, but Potato Salad Hill should be closed, or at least the BLM should analyze that, because the hill is basically a dime a dozen, and it's not a dime a dozen. The consequences are that other obstacles nearby that don't have room for parking, that are in more sensitive areas, are likely to get that use displacement, which will cause further problems. And the MTC letter talked about identifying an alternative. We're open to moving if you can come up with a better spot. But to close it all together, that along with your additional items in the option B letter, about the closing the bicycling, limiting the horse to designated routes, and then not designating it in the mid and backcountry areas, not designating routes for hikers. Of course, I don't think the MCCC proposed to limit hiking to designated routes, but just to acknowledge that certain routes are in existence and be able to mark them as such so that people don't go off of them. Those are all important things. And, basically I downloaded the agenda packet on Friday. They weren't there. So at some point, maybe over the weekend or yesterday, this new letter appeared with all of these things, including the closing of Potato Salad Hill that the MCCC never discussed over the last several years. And so really the process you're allowing for these things is just the last 24 hours or whatever you've had since posting that agenda. And I think that's entirely too short, because the BLM is taking the word of the county seriously, because the BLM assumes that you're doing that due diligence, and so that they can rely on that guidance as the will of the community. And I just don't think you're there yet. And so I ask you, if you want to take on those other issues, give it more time. Otherwise, go with letter A, with the caveat that you should only support the parts that actually achieved consensus, because that is from the outset of the MCCC, what it was designed to do. And the majority vote is basically irrelevant when you have a collaborative that is not even claiming to be a representative sample of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. Doug, were you able to get on?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Yep.
I see yes. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, this is Doug McElhaney. I'm with the Motorized Trail Committee and a lifelong Moab resident. And my biggest concern is we talk about user conflicts. If you close the Powerhouse Lane parking lot and move all of those people over to Potato Salad Hill, we immediately cause conflicts, because if you go up there most of the time, there's lots of hikers, lots of people walking their pets, and in the summer some people are playing in the water. On the other side, on the Powerhouse Lane side, there are hikers, but mostly the people aren't playing in the water, and then there are the people that utilize Potato Salad Hill, and that doesn't get used near as often as the hiking trails on either side. And so if you close one big parking lot and move all those people to the other side where the parking lot isn't near as well defined and not as easy to access, we immediately cause conflicts. And so I think it's a selfish way to help a community and hurt the overall public. And so I think that about says it all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doug.
You bet.
Any other comments?
No, I think Cliff said pretty much what I believe in too. I just wanted to comment that I think closing one parking lot and moving over to the other just immediately causes conflicts.
Thank you, Doug.
So, thank you.
Anyone else, Mallory?
Mary, I don't see anybody else at this time.
Thank you very much. We will have a second citizens to be heard at 6 o'clock. We are to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for October 19th, 2021?
Mary?
Motion by Jacques. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mary.
Okay, seconded by Trish. Open for discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Ratification of payment of bills.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, thank you, Gabriel.
I would make a motion to approve Grand County bills for November 2nd, 2021. Total bills in the amount of $967,889.87. Total payroll in the amount of $260,620.30. Total bills and payroll in the amount of $1,228,510.17.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do I have a second? Seconded by Evan Clapper. Discussion? Thank you. All in favor of ratifying the bills? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Commission member disclosures. Do we have any commission members that have anything to disclose on this particular agenda? Okay, we will move to general commission reports and future considerations. Well, I would like to begin with, I think we need to recognize someone who has helped us so much this year, Mary Hoffine. She has reached the number of hours she's able to work, so she will be leaving us at least for the rest of this year. And she saved our bacon, to say the least. She was incredible. She stepped up when we needed her. And then she's just been such a team player and such a positive person in the office. Anyone that's been in there just recognizes how that office is a happy, pleasant place to be. And I think a lot of it has to do with Mary Hoffine. And I'm sure that her courtesy and her hard work ethic has rubbed off onto everybody that works in that area. I would like to open this up to, like, I know other people might have something that they'd like to say in thanking Mary Hoffine. Is there anyone else that would comment?
I want to say thank you.
Who is that? Trish, go ahead.
Mary. Well, I'll say something,
Mary.
Mary.
Tell Mary thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Hey, Mary, if you think you're going to go home and quilt, it's not happening. Like, we're going to bring you back. So you're done for a while, but
I got my mojo
we really,
back.
we really appreciate you
all
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would also echo Chairman McGann that not only did you really save the county and bail us as an organization out in a time of need, but really you did a lot for the citizens to keep their applications moving forward and really catch up on a lot of things that were in a holding pattern. So on behalf of the citizens, thank you so much for greasing the wheels and keeping the bureaucracy cranking.
Hey, I'll jump in too and say thank you, Mary. You've been patient, kind, helpful. She's taught me a lot, and she's just been a delight to work with. So I'm grateful for everything she's brought to the county. She's been great.
You guys are making me cry.
Thank you, Mary. You're amazing. You saved us. Appreciate you.
This is Mallory. I just want to say the same thing. We couldn't have made it without you.
Oh, you could have.
I don't think so. You're
just
cutting
a little
yourself
hard. No, I really appreciate it. You guys have been great with me too. I so appreciate it. And we have a great staff now. I love working with every one of them. John's been wonderful to work with. Elise has been wonderful to work with. Josh has been great. Our team and Jenna, our whole team now is amazing. They can do so much. So I'm glad I left it in a good place.
Thank you so much. And don't be a stranger when
I'm
we
not.
finally. Okay, good.
I gotta walk through and wave at all my friends.
Thank you very, very much. I'll just complete my report. The end of the month usually isn't as busy for me as the first of the month. On the 21st, we had a solid waste special service district. Things are plugging along. The merger is doing well, and we continue to see improvements. There's growing pains in all things, but it's going well. I just wanted to make everybody aware that this coming Saturday, November 8th, there is a hazardous waste event at the recycle center. So if you have any hazardous waste you've been wanting to get rid of, that will be going on this Saturday from 8 to 2. And so I think that was the main thing that I wanted everyone to know from that meeting. The Housing Authority, let me grab my notes on that. It was on the same day. As usual, we're excited. It looks like we are finally moving ahead. The Royal Crossing families 9 homes have signed and completed all the work, so that you should be seeing development there, if not already, this week. So this is very good news. This has been a long time coming. The voucher program is opened up and they're taking applications, and we have some open for veterans especially. There is a long waiting list, but they are taking applications for this year. The Cinema Court has a waiting list for 35 for their 1-bedroom and 72 for their 2-bedroom and 46 for their 3 bedrooms. Maps is 100% occupied with a waiting list of 43 for the 1-bedroom and 17 for the 2-bedroom. Wingate has 17 occupied and 4 are pre-approved. They have a waiting list of 75 people for the 3-bedroom and 39 for the 4-bedroom. So all of these numbers really show how important and how excited we are as the housing authority that Arroyo Crossing is on the move, and we're starting to see some of our HDHO organizations applications come into effect. The UMTRA project, we had the presentation the week at our 19th, celebrating the 12th ton of tailings moved. So that was very exciting. They have plans, I believe we're going to be able to move a quarter more tonnage this year. So we will be able to get over 1 million tons moved this year. So that's very exciting. And if you see Ronnie Durarsary or Joette Langanese, do give them thanks, because it was the hard work of the lobbyists that have made this happen, our lobbying efforts. We had CCP on the 28th, Canyon Country Partnership. That is almost impossible to give a thorough rundown. I thought that some things they might be interested. I thought Evan might already know, but they are, this spring, they will have climbing stewards living in Indian Creek to help keep that place safe. Things are moving along, lots of actions around Bears Ears. Emory County has some really nice economic developments activities happening. And the state parks are staying extremely busy. All of them have moved up. And next month we will have a update on what's happening with Utah Raptor State Park. So that ends my report. Gabriel.
Thanks, Mary. Let's see, I'll try to be as brief as I can. October 20th, there was the Economic Diversification Advisory Council, where August, our Economic Development Director, proposed some of the uses of those TRT dollars that are included in the tentative budget, including Economic Development Master Plan, which you all may have noticed in our workshop today, for $65,000, in addition to a local business expansion program. I guess the idea would be a grant program, potentially $10,000 to $100,000 grants awarded to businesses. And that sort of program is really in still very much in process of being designed. In fact, I believe they're meeting at the moment now. They had to postpone and whatnot. So the meeting fell on the same time as our commission meeting, unfortunately. But that's an interesting process that's ongoing and hopefully has a lot of potential to bolster our economy and help out some local business owners. So that's pretty exciting to be involved with. On the 21st, with Chair McGann and Commissioner Walker, I attended a presentation by Love Communications with that included audience segmentation study results. So some somewhat interesting information about the visitor profiles and which visitor profiles might be targeted in the future with regards to their dollar spends on visits and how they may or may not be impacting town and surrounding public lands in a way that is sustainable and positive. On the 28th, I had an AOG meeting, or the SULAG, or Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments. Not many big updates on that from that meeting. We're going to meet in Moab in December, so that's kind of fun. They typically are in Price. I've been attending virtually. One detail that came up, and I'm not sure if it's something that's been sort of sent out via email to all of the appropriate bodies, but CIB, in order to apply for CIB funding requests in the coming year, there's a new process that they're requiring from any body that would be applying. It's called a CASI. It's a capital asset self-inventory. So I'm sure they're going to do what they need to do to spread the word about that, but it's another little hoop that they're adding there. Spoke on Friday the 29th with some representatives from AT&T about a potential cell phone tower addition up by the 313 corridor that all of y'all are aware of now. And hopefully we'll be receiving a presentation on the 16th meeting with regards to that, and hopefully get a lot more details about the potential impacts of that project and whether it's something that we would support or not. And as far as future considerations go, we're all aware of this November 19th UDOT meeting. I had made mention in a previous report about Bruce Adams, San Juan County Commissioner, making a presentation during the public comment period of that meeting with regards to four-lane expansions along Highway 191 and through to Highway 6. I think he requested that commissioners be there, any potentially Grand County commissioners be there in support of that. It also kind of it sort of led into another conversation with Mayor Niehaus, who also serves on the AOG board, with regards to the Southeast Utah passenger rail study, which I'll send to all of the commission, and that was completed in 2020, May 15th of 2020. And UDOT spent $60,000 on this on a study for sort of assessing the idea of passenger rail from Moab to Salt Lake City. And Mayor Niehaus and I are sort of currently in very preliminary conversations about brainstorming and potentially sort of highlighting or making mention of that investment that Utah has already made in the UDOT that has already made in the idea of rail, but just the potential of that of being kind of a more aspirational sort of effort or endeavor for this area, rather than just kind of more conventional lane widening projects, which may have use as well. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Gabriel. Trish?
Can you hear me, Mary?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. First, I want to say something about Gabriel's mustache. Nobody's acknowledging that. That's looking really good. I always have to make some comment.
It's
Anyway,
Movember, so
okay. So
I'm sorry, it's Movember. So if you get prostate screening, all of the men's health things, that's my public comment.
I get it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Nobody, yeah. Okay, so just some quick things. I met on October 20th with John Gunther and Bill and Jenna Talbot. She is one of the board members from the TSSD. They're looking at, which is really cool, there's an old schoolhouse, an old one-room schoolhouse in Thompson that is owned by the Special Service District. And so they're looking at reviving that and making it a community center, a place where the arts can happen, and it also would house the TSSD. So that was really fun to just kind of be a part of that and listen to how that process might come to be. And she's been writing grants, so that's really fun. On the 25th, we had a planning commission meeting. John gave a planning and zoning update, and just a quick reminder that on November 10th from 4 to 7 at the Grand Center, there will be that general plan open house. The public engagement website for planning and zoning is up and running. They are really starting to concentrate as far as planning, the Planning Commission on regional planning. So wanting to work with the city and San Juan County and, trying to just collaborate with those entities. There was quite a lengthy discussion on OAOs and just what is a healthy ratio regarding OAOs in regards to just households within the community and just also the general health of our housing stock. And so that was great. I don't need to tell you this, but our planning commission right now is just stacked with really amazing individuals. And so the discussions are just, really vibrant. So that's great. And there was also a discussion on the revision of the concept of a dude ranch. And so, could we revise that and make it into, the term was a special purpose retreat. And so just some ideas. So you're talking about something more like an educational retreat in that realm. And then lastly, I met just briefly with individuals to talk about the Book Cliffs Highway, the meeting with the Elm Greens from the Three Forks Ranch, and that meeting was delayed until the 9th. That's it, Mary.
Thank you.
Sorry to give you a hard time, Gabe.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Gabe, for mentioning the love communication. That totally slipped. It wasn't on. And thank you, Trish, for the update on what's happening with the Book Cliff Highway. Jacques?
Hi, how's my audio?
It's good.
I attended a Museum of Moab meeting, and while there, I was able to check out the Katsina exhibit and would very much recommend it to everybody. It's a fantastic exhibit with information about the carvers and the different types. And also during the next art walk, I think it's the Saturday following this one, one of the carvers will be in attendance at the museum. So it'd be a great time to check that out. It's awesome. Very much recommended. I also attended a rec board meeting that night where we got our yearly audit from the accountants, and that went okay. Rec board is not flush, but solvent. And last week I attended the Motorized Trail Commission meeting where the main topic of discussion was the Mill Creek letter that is on the agenda today. And I think Cliff touched on most of what the MTC came to then. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Jacques. Evan?
It's funny you mentioned it. I actually had coffee with some of those stewards working down in the Indian Creek section of the Bear Sears Monument this weekend. So good crew in there. I did not reveal who I was though, so no official business, but it was nice to get to meet those folks. I attended a rural EMS meeting that was actually held in Moab, which was nice to have representatives from around the state, other EMS directors and board members, et cetera, in town here, and kind of able to connect with them. It's a 3-day meeting, and one of the sessions was in regard to legislation efforts. I thought there was going to be some legislators down from upstate who I was going to corner and put the screws to, but they ended up not attending in person. So I did get to hear some of those EMS priorities. Some of the things of interest is trying to, at a state level, create more benefits for volunteers, both EMS and firefighters, which I thought was applicable to our community. So the idea that those folks who are giving up time and not being paid for it might get some some insurance benefits or possibly a tax break. And the challenges there is figuring out who would be eligible, what a volunteer is, etc. So that was kind of the most exciting one. There's some other rural grants that are coming down the pipe, and just trying to be clear about who's on that grant committee for when applications will go in. Grand County EMS Special Service District is already planning on applying for some of those. So trying to get some clarity around that. That was kind of the big news that I had to report, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Sarah.
I attended the community, actually 2 meetings of the Community Renewable Energy Program. We will have the option to pay our next bill of $2,000 either in this fiscal year or the next fiscal year. So I'll touch base with somebody about that, which one it makes sense. I also had a meeting with Kevin and Nicole, Gladys Wyatt, and Tom at the BLM regarding the Gemini Bridges Labyrinth travel plan, and how we talked extensively about how long the process has been going on, and about getting some changes to their alternative maps that reflect some of the county's priorities. And I was at least somewhat hopeful that at least they're going to listen to some of what we're saying and produce better draft maps. But I wanted to touch base with each of you about specific trails and what we think about that before we move on with mapping exercises with BLM. And I also attended a meeting with the Moab Mosquito Abatement District and the DNR and the Nature Conservancy, and we did a walk about the wetlands and talked about how everyone can work together. That was really great. And we went to that new fish pond, which they call the North Pond. It's designed to be able to breed native species of fish. And this year they got 4. So it's a success, but hopefully in the future they get more than 4. Also attended the Noxious Weed Board meeting. That was just covering basic business. And I have agreed to be a part of the technical advisory group for the city's sustainability plan. So if folks have thoughts about what to contribute from the county's perspective into that group, let me know. And that's about it.
Everybody's been very busy. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any elected officials on the meeting that would like to make a report? Speak up. Okay, no elected officials. Commission Administrator and Associate Administrator, Chris and Mallory.
Thanks, Mary. I've just been all consumed with the budget and the compensation adjustments, so we've gone over that. Mallory, do you have anything else?
I have a few quick things. I have finally put out the request for qualifications for a few of our public defender contracts, which we have the new position that we're opening with the Indigent Defense Commission funding, and all of our contracts, to be honest, except for one, are very out of date. So we decided to put that out as well. If you know anybody who might be interested, it's on our website. The Indigent Defense Commission has also posted it, and we're hoping to send it out to the Utah Bar Association listserv. Two other things. I'm working on the fee schedule for 2022, and I remember that Evan brought up something regarding Star Hall that I can't remember, but I can also send that out to all of you as is, in case you have other suggestions of fees to look into.
Sorry to interrupt, Mallory, but another one off the top of my head was impact fees. I know at one point we were talking about including fees for parks and things close to areas that were being developed. And I think that there's a placeholder for that in the fee collection, but right now there's no fees being collected. And so that's one right off the top of my head that I'd like to.
Yeah, Chris is probably better suited to speak
Yeah.
to that, but I know it's on the list.
Impact fees are a different animal from what Mallory's talking about. So with impact fees, there's actually quite a process to go through before we can implement an impact fee. So we need to update our capital facilities plan and impact fee plan, then hold a public hearing. And then there's, I can't remember how long, but there's a waiting period after the impact fee plan is approved before we can actually start collecting fees. So I'm hoping to be able to get that process started next year, but it's a pretty lengthy process. Could take 6 or 7 months just to get through it because it requires a very substantive plan be produced and lots of studies, et cetera. And so the basic gist of impact fees is that you look at your baseline level of services that exists right now, and then project growth out, 6 years or so into the future, and then try to determine what's going to be required to maintain the current level of service given the growth, and then that's what you can collect in impact fees. And so it's kind of it's definitely a different process than what Mallory's going through right now, but we are planning on undertaking that study and getting those plans done next year.
Sweet. I was going to say, I guess we better finish the general plan.
Okay, a few other quick things. I told the health department I would give a plug. They are doing a kind of campaign on radon awareness and testing, and they got, I believe, over 600 tests that they will be giving out. So they'll be sending out mailers, any ideas that you might have for how they can spread the word and make sure that those are getting to our community. And then the last thing would just be spreadsheets, and a huge shout out to Chris, who's got that all on his lap now. So that's all that I have, unless there's any questions.
Questions, anyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We are to department report on the building department. Bill Holtz?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been a pretty busy year in the building department, floodplain administrator. As you can see, there's still a ton of construction, even though things have slowed down with COVID. But one of the ways we measure how busy we are is revenue. So permit revenue, plan review revenue. In 2019, we brought in about 256,000. 2020, we brought in about 270,000. This year to date, we're at about 197,000. We're projected to be about 235. That is a little bit low of what we have been, but there are some big projects that are approved that haven't pulled the permits yet. If any one of those comes in, it'll put us over our projected revenue. We've got the Country Inn and Suites, which is the motel. It's a $65,000 permit. So that one alone would put us over. Sage Creek has 3 buildings. They're about 35,000 each in permit fees. And then the Love's Truck Stop is another 13. So those ones are, we didn't put them into that projection because we've been waiting on them for a while now. For various reasons, they're not pulling those permits, whether it's material prices or other issues that has been holding off. So we think we're on pace to be about where we normally are with revenue, which covers most of our budget. I think we might, in the next couple of years, if construction does continue to slow, we might have to put a multiplier to our permit fees, just so that the general public isn't paying for our department. Construction is supposed to pay for our department. On the floodplain side, again, we've been pretty busy. We had some pretty big projects we were working on before the flooding happened, and now with the flooding, we've got a couple extras thrown on top. One of the things is we're going to be working with the Emergency Management Office and the Army Corps of Engineers. We got a grant this year for updating our flood hazard mitigation plan and our flood emergency action plan. So when these flooding events take place, there's a procedure, there's a phone tree, people are called, response, public outreach. We did a pretty good job, I think. There are some things I think we can improve on, and this process will help us define which ones we need to work on. So that was a pretty big project. The other one was the Nrcs program, which is the community rating system and the National Flood Insurance Program. We worked on that all last year, and this year we had our first verification visit, and we were entered in as a Class 8 community. Currently, the city is a Class 9, so we're one class better than them. What that does is the more points we get for going above and beyond the minimum requirements, the lower our class goes. The lower our class goes, the lower premiums for our constituents are that have to have flood insurance. So by going above and beyond, protecting them a little bit better, it protects the insurance companies, so they cut them some breaks on the premiums. So we'll have our first cycle verification in April, at which point, if we've done everything we've said we would do, then the insurance companies would be informed to drop those rates. So for the Class 8, I believe it's 5% for property that is not in the special flood hazard area, and 10% discount for properties that are in the special flood hazard area. So not a huge amount, but with insurance, every little bit helps. And then we were working on with Bill Jackson and Casa Marion on the brick grant that Chris talked about earlier for Pack Creek. And now we're working with Bill on the Nrcs grants. And we think that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to get funded for those. That's a pretty extensive project. We actually sent out letters today to, I believe it's 27 property owners that are located within 250 feet of the crossings that are going to get worked on, so that we can get them to sign right of entry permits, so that if this grant funding happens, it's a pretty short timeline where we have to complete the projects. We want to have all our ducks in a row before that came through. And if we don't get the funding, we're still going to end up having to do something with those areas. So we'll need those right of entry permits there too. That's about it. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission? I think people would be happy to hear about the decrease in insurance. Thank you. Yes, Gabriel?
Well, first off, just wanted to thank you, Bill, for all you do for the county and for the community. We had a public comment today with regards to the need for more sound enforcement, code enforcement as it relates to illegal camping. But I guess since you're on the horn right now, would you say that there are some deficiencies in enforcement as well with regards to building code violations? Is that something that you're concerned about? Just thought I'd ask now.
So building code violations, we've been working with planning and zoning for years with code enforcement. Haven't always had a staff position. Now that Josh is in, I think it's going to make things a little easier. I actually talked to him earlier today, and we did talk about Emily's concern about the camping and ways we might be able to address that, whether it's just blanketing an area with letters. Every RV we see in somebody's side yard that's hooked up, just start sending out letters. Excuse me. But I think with him just getting started and a lot of the other projects he's been thrown into, it takes away some of that time he can spend out in the field looking for stuff like that.
And I believe our code enforcement is driven by complaints. So the code enforcer doesn't go out and look. Am I right, Bill?
Yeah, it is, but I think we're trying to move from that now that we have a permanent staff. I think there is a thought that as opposed to just doing complaint driven, definitely that's going to be the main way we catch things. But with camping, I think there is a need to start targeting areas and blanketing neighborhoods with letters. If we were to send out 10 or 15 a week for a few months, we'd get a handle and people would start to understand that, hey, this isn't allowed. And I think the message it sends to send out those letters does almost as much as the enforcement itself.
Also, just for the public to know, there is an online complaint process now that does go through our code compliance officer. So you can find that just by Googling Grand County code compliance or via the code compliance section on our website.
Thank you, Christina. That's a good point. It's easier now than it used to be. Anything else for Bill?
Just along with code enforcement, I just want to, make sure everyone realizes, that it's not necessarily a simple process. Everyone's entitled to their own due process. And so we always try to resolve things, with letters first. But, if it comes to the point of actual enforcement with citations, et cetera, we have to collect evidence. There's a lot that goes into it, and obviously, the people who are getting the citation are entitled to defend against it, et cetera. So it's not as easy as just, sending something down there and having them cease operations immediately. But every complaint that comes in, we log and process, and so we're not ignoring any complaints that have come in by any means. But there is a process that we have to go through, and the folks out in the community are entitled to due process as well.
I do think too, we're really in the initial education phase, and that's sort of what Chris is getting to. We try to resolve these amicably. A lot of landowners don't know what our land use code says, and still that's true as to camping. I think it's something the county could do a better job with. We don't have a public information officer, and most of your department heads are totally overwhelmed. But I do think, the city puts regular ads out into the paper to educate the public about their laws, and we don't do that. And I do think it's something we should look into, especially with camping. I think there is a lot of confusion about our camping law, or no camping law, I should say.
Thank you, Christina.
Yeah, Mary, if I could just add something to this and make this longer than it
Yes,
should be.
John?
In early December, we'll be giving a report to the commission, a quarterly report on code enforcement, and obviously the response. It is voluntary compliance. We aren't out there doing proactive enforcement like you mentioned, so we are here to assist. Prosecution is pretty expensive and it takes a long time, puts a lot of stress on our county attorney. We try to avoid that as much as we can, but we still want compliance. So public information is one of those areas we'll be looking at through public engagement and the county strategic plan too.
Thank you, John. Does anyone have any more questions for Bill? I think we are all very appreciative of all of your work, Bill, and it's been a hard year, especially with the floods, and I know you went through a great deal of angst with angry citizens and I appreciate you handling it in such a professional way. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're getting there. You see the light at the end.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bill.
Thank
We
you.
are to General business and action items. We do not have any agency report or presentations. Our general business and action item, our first one is approving denial of tax relief application through October 15th, 2021. Chris Kaufman.
Thank you, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you. So I'm presenting the denial of tax relief applications for 2021 through October 15th. As you all saw in a prior meeting, we receive tax relief applications in the treasurer's office, and we approve those and get you to approve all of the tax relief that we put through. In prior years, we haven't brought the applications that are denied to the commission, but the Utah State Tax Commission earlier this year sent out an advisory to all the counties that they think it's a good step to have the legislative body of the county officially deny the applications. And it's helpful with the appeals process that taxpayers are afforded. If their application is denied, they can make an appeal. And so your denial tonight will start a 30-day period where they can do that. As I mentioned, the information contained within these tax relief applications is a protected record under Utah state law. And so it hasn't been included in the public packet, but I have numbered the applications 1 through 5 so that if we do need to discuss any of them, we can talk about them without disclosing any identifying information. I included in the packet all of the criteria that exists for determining whether or not someone is eligible for the tax relief. And I did send the actual applications to commission members individually. So my recommendation is that we deny these officially. Most of them are pretty straightforward. The income that they verified to us through their tax returns and other documents was over the income limit that is set by the legislature every year. And this year it's $34,666. And we did have one applicant who, by the time we processed their applicant, was no longer an owner of the parcel that they applied for. And that is also something that is not allowed for the tax relief. Are there any questions from the commission?
Yeah, Chris, I have a question, and I assume I somewhat know the answer, but this is a static number, a number that's applied to all counties across the state, so it doesn't take into account cost of living per county?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Well, I don't have questions. It is at all up for discussion, I guess.
Discussion, yes. Well, we need a motion for discussion. You're cutting out, Trish. I can't understand you. Do I have so that we can have discussion?
I'd make a motion.
Okay, Sarah.
I move to approve the denial of tax relief applications, all of them numbered 1 through 5 for 2021 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Sarah. Do I have a second? Seconded by Jacques. Open for discussion. Anyone have any discussion they would like to move forward with?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Mary? I turned off my camera.
Yeah, that helped a lot. That helped a lot. Thank you, Trish.
I'm just gonna, it's somewhat serendipitous in the sense that I was having a discussion with a fellow employee today, and she is over 70. She is still working full time. And she stated to me, she's like, I'm struggling and I'm struggling paying my taxes. And I guess for me, I just have a lot of empathy and hope that someday when I'm not fully productive and making the amount of money I can make now because I can work full time, that, yeah, I just struggle with this. When you look at these incomes, you know, one individual is, you know, $2,000 over the income level. And so I'm struggling with this. To me, I would, 1, 3, and 4 I would give them tax relief. The other two are, the one is so far over and the other individual doesn't own the parcel anymore. So that one to me is immediately disqualified, but I'm just kind of throwing that out. It's difficult. It actually makes my stomach hurt a little bit to deny tax relief for people, you know, in this predicament, but.
One comment I would have on that is that I think where our hands are pretty well tied as far as giving them the circuit breaker tax relief, which is what most of these are applying for, because a portion of that is refunded to the county by the state. However, the commission has the authority to cancel and lower people's taxes for whatever reasons they see fit that are in the public interest. So what I would say to that is that if you have an interest in doing that for anybody, you could do it, but I wouldn't do it by trying to approve this particular application where we're going to be asking the state to refund it, if that makes sense.
Can they do an appeal, right? And we've had that happen in the past. I remember, and we have granted some appeals. I remember it's quite a while back. It was when my first term. So this is just, if I understand, this is the point which makes it possible for them to apply for an appeal. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. We will send out a letter to them after the official denial, which will let them know that they have 30 days to appeal the decision of the county. I believe they make that appeal to the state once the county has denied it. However, when they're, I don't think they would get any relief through that just because they don't meet the requirements, unless they're arguing that, some of their income shouldn't have counted or something like that. And to my knowledge, I don't remember any appeals of specifically these types of applications. We have had folks who have, asked for forgiveness on penalty and interest that I do recall.
The one I was remembering was the lady from Castle Valley. I think it was your first or second year. As that
was penalty.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was this. Anyone else have discussion, questions? So if we pass this, then it is the state that would be the first avenue if there's going to be any adjustment.
If they wanted to appeal and say that, no, I think the county was wrong, I think I did qualify for the circuit breaker, then I do believe that would go to the state. I'm not super familiar with that process because we haven't had it happen before. I think that's what happens next. But like I said, any of these people could potentially get tax relief from the county, but through a different avenue.
And so they'd be aware of that avenue?
Right. We could certainly include that in our letter.
That would be great, Chris, if you could do that.
Because I agree with Trish, it'd be just $1,000, less than $2,000 over. I can see that would be that one especially. Any other discussion?
No, I would just appreciate if Chris can include that in your letter, just other avenues that they could seek out to find help.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My recommendation, this is Chris. Chris Barrett. I just want to say my recommendation, if you wanted to consider tax relief that's not associated with this circuit breaker, or that you adopt a policy about it so that you're not addressing them one at a time and treating people differently. So that if you did do that, that it would be a generalized policy and everybody would, would apply according to that policy.
Good point, Chris. Yeah,
I would echo Chris's point for sure on that. I think that it is important that you are equitable to everybody. And these are just the 5 applications that were actually signed and returned to us that are being officially denied. We have many other folks who know that they're over income or call and ask us, and we tell them the limit and we work through it, and they just don't end up turning in a signed application to deny. So these aren't necessarily the only folks that are, in the same boat.
So that might be something for future considerations, is to come up with a policy if they're, maybe work with finding out, how much higher our cost of living is than, say, the majority of Utah. Yeah, we could come up with a policy. That sounds good. Any further discussion? Okay.
Was that a substitute motion for all these?
No, I think
new policies, or was that just in the future to come?
in the future.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, nobody's done a substitute. We've just future considerations, maybe creating a policy. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? And I can't see you, Trish, so you're going to have to say something. And are you anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-1 with Tricia Dean in opposition. Number D, approving cancellation and refund of taxes due to tax roll errors. Chris Kaufman.
Thank you again. Do we have Debbie on the call as well?
Looks like she's on.
Okay, well, Debbie, feel free to chime in at any point. I'll get us started here. So every year, there are usually some minor errors and issues that come up, especially when tax bills go out. People start to get really serious about what's showing on their tax bill, and they start to pay closer attention. And so we've got basically 2 errors that were brought to the attention of the county. When errors or omissions are found in the tax roll, the county legislative body can approve corrections to be made. Because the tax roll is currently closed and tax bills have gone out, corrections must be made to the taxes and not to the values. So both of these are valuation issues, but the values will stay as they stand now on the tax rolls, but we will adjust the taxes to be what they ought to be based on the new valuations after the errors are corrected. The first one, an owner of a parcel brought to the county's attention that 0.15 acres of land they sold to their neighbor was not reflected on the tax roll in 2018, 19, 20, or 21. So they were basically charged a little extra than they should have been. And I have a table here that shows for each of those years the actual amount of taxes that comes out to. And so we're asking to refund or cancel $129.81 in taxes. Most of that will be a refund because they've already paid it. And then depending on whether they've paid the 2021 or not, by the time we refund, it'll either be a cancellation or a refund for the $32.56 from 2021. The next parcel had a small strip of land that was reassessed this year, along with all the other parcels in the Spanish Valley District. During the reassessment, the land was determined to be a buildable lot. But subsequently, after talking with the property owner and the building department, it was determined that it was too small to actually fit a building on there. And that had a large impact on the valuation of the parcel. And so the taxable value was reduced significantly, which would result in a refund to the taxpayer of $386.91 because they have already paid the tax for 2021. Debbie, did you have anything you wanted to add about that? Okay, any questions from the commissioners?
Any questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mary.
Thank you, Trish.
Oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Oh no, maybe I'm not going to make a motion. I don't know what I just did with my page. Sorry.
I think
somebody else. Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think she was trying to say she moved to approve the cancellation and refund of taxes on 2 parcels as presented.
Nice. I will second that motion.
Okay, so I would change that. Motion by Evan, seconded by Trish. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mary, this is Kevin. I'm here too, and I voted yes.
Okay, I want to move to item G, because the person who really did most of the development of the second B letter was Kevin Walker. So he wanted to be here for the vote, and he's traveling. So since he's called in, I would like to move to item G. Okay. Anyone objects? Okay, we will move to item G. Yeah, Clara was going to join us to talk about, because she was a person who was very involved in the writing of the outcomes of the Mill Creek Collaborative, but she texted me this afternoon and she is unable to attend. So she won't be here to talk so much about item A. So I will do a quick discussion I was part of the process. It lasted years. It lasted close to 4 years, and lots and lots of discussions, many people involved, hard decisions. The final, decision by the majority of the people on the Mill Creek Collaborative to move the parking lot to Potato Salad Hill was not an easy one. It was just looking at the future development over near Powerhouse Lane made it very difficult for to see how we could enlarge or do anything to deal with crowding there, but yet people could ride their bikes or walk in would be provable. And so the decision to finally do it over near Potato Salad Hill was not done lightly, and there was much look and much discussion on other solutions. So that's what we are there, and we did approve that, it would, because we understand that it's a lot to do with safety and closeness to town with the that event for during Jeep Safari, that we would not stop that event, but perhaps through study and such on that week that is going on, do some modification. So, I guess in short, if we choose to vote on this tonight, I would really like to honor the people who spent years working on it. Okay, Kevin, do you want to address your letter? Yep. Kevin, are you still there?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are now.
Okay, good, thank you. So the letter I wrote, I think, is fully compatible with what the MCCC was recommending. It's just sort of asking the BLM to consider some additional options when they study this decision. So I just wanted to get that out there. But since I wrote that letter and put it in the packet, just very recently, several people have written in with, strong concerns about putting the parking lot at Potato Salad Hill. I don't personally, I don't necessarily share those concerns, but I do think they raise, points that should be looked at carefully. And so in addition to the things that I wanted to tack onto the letter, which is version B, I wonder whether we might also concern, asking the BLM to also look at this option A plus that Sarah Melnicott put out there. Cliff Kuntz wrote a letter that came in late and I haven't had a chance to read it. Or maybe the easier thing is just postpone this for another 2 weeks. I don't think it's an emergency, and I think that would give all of us a chance to read some of this late arriving things. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'll talk in more detail about that. I think the mostly relatively minor things that I wanted to say in the letter. And again, I'm emphasizing they're all in the form of the BLM should take a hard look at these options. It's not a case of Grand County endorsing those options. It would just be the commission saying that, this is something, that ought to be looked at in the decision process. So I'll stop there.
Kevin, I got the sense that you thought maybe this should be postponed again for further discussion. I'm beginning to think it might need to be a small workshop where we have some of the people who are raising the concerns and the people who work with the writing and the development of to be there and be present so that so we can hear from everyone at the same time, and so that the committee can explain their reasoning, Sarah can explain her reasoning, Cliff can, and then maybe we can, all of us feel more comfortable with what we're voting on. Because I think just discussing it in a motion setting like this doesn't give us the opportunity to ask the questions. So I certainly wouldn't mind postponing if we didn't merely postpone, but we postponed with the sense that we would somehow have not a long workshop, but maybe an hour where we bring all the parties together and discuss the various options.
I'm not opposed to that idea, Mary, but I also think it could be a little bit simpler than that, because we've heard from the Mill Creek Collaborative, and then we've also been presented with the A+ plan, and I had a chance to talk to Sarah today. I think I think Cliff brought up a really good point, which was that the group was striving for consensus, and I think we could write a letter that was in support of the consensus, which doesn't involve Potato Salad Hill, but then also ask the BLM to look at an option like A+ that has some kind of toll booth at the Powerhouse Dam. And I'm sure that they're going to do that anyway, because they have to do a whole EIS with an array of options. So to me, it's not a very contentious issue here, which plan we pick or something, but I could see us just saying, can you look at both of these options, and maybe just highlight some of the concerns that Kevin also wrote about. But I think those were also, some of them were covered in the Mill Creek Collaborative process.
So what you're suggesting is maybe come up with a letter that says that with all the items in the Mill Creek Collaborative process that came to consensus, to really move forward with those, but then to consider the areas that are not of consensus and ask that they look at these others. Is that what type of letter you're considering?
To consider both the Potato Salad Hill parking lot and the current parking lot and the addition of a toll booth, which is in the A+ plan. Because they together represent an array of possibilities. And there seems to be lots of issues, like Andrea brought up that there needs to be a road study to see if Potato Salad Hill would even work. So it feels premature for the county to endorse something like that when we just don't have the information. And I'm sure the BLM isn't just going to say, okay, we're only going to study that anyway. But I would like to lend a little support to the A+ plan, because I do think it was a creative way of addressing the problems given the constraints.
Do you want to make a motion to postpone and create a letter of a combination, work with Kevin and maybe Andrea and come up with a letter that we feel it captures all our thoughts. Yes, Evan?
I was just gonna, I guess I might have had a question a little bit about the process. It sounds like the A+ plan was submitted to the BLM. I would assume that the community collaborative plan was submitted to the BLM. And so, if it's hard for us to endorse it, and then, we saw a letter B, which was kind of like another alternative that was coming from this body, that, is it really for us to endorse one of these as much as kind of like highlight some of these questions of kind of like a bit of picking and choosing? Because obviously the potato salad hill would need a lot of improvement to handle the kind of use that they're talking about. And, it's kind of like, who's going to pay for that? Is that going to be a county road? Is it going to continue to be a county road like it is now? Is that something that we want to pick up the funding for? That parking lot is about the same size, it looks like on the map, as the power dam parking lot. So is it really that much of an improvement? I think that where the historic access has been from power dam, I'm a little sensitive to kind of, that there has been development that happened along this historic recreation access, and then kind of being like, hey, can we move this now that I built a house here? But the flip side of that coin is that we did kind of, at the beginning of this process, ask the committee to come up with a recommendation. And so to that point, I think, to Sarah's point of supporting the consensus and the unanimous decisions, I'm okay with. But like to Kevin's point, do we really need a designated trail in right hand? There's just still a lot here going on. And I think that it might be, I'm in favor of taking a little more time before a formal weigh-in, because I think the attorney and the sheriff also raised some concerns about that similar, use of the Sand Flats Road and the dump road to get to Powerhouse. And then, this question of what will Potato Salad Hill and the use there look like in the future. So there's all these other kind of like fringe things outside of these plans. I think the A+ plan and the community collaborative plan focused a lot on what would happen within the canyon itself. But for us as the county, it's kind of like, what are the questions of how we facilitate what's happening within the canyon and getting people in, getting people out, keeping people safe? How does that affect these other historical uses, future developers and developments? And so I'm in favor of postponing, and those are just kind of some of those questions that I would like to kind of wrestle with in the next couple of weeks before it comes up again.
And I know a lot of what the collaborative wanted was they want the BOM to move forward and start studying all the alternatives. It doesn't matter, and they kind of need a letter from the county saying, yes, we want you to move forward in figuring out how to deal with the issues at Powerhouse. So maybe that's how we need to write it, is that we need to move forward, because they're going to have all the scoping. They're going to have all the public comment. So I want to make a motion.
Mary, could I say something?
Oh, certainly, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Am I muted?
No, you're not.
Okay, sorry. So I agree with, I think the main thing that this letter is doing is asking the BLM to move forward, and then the second question is, just additional instructions or preferences we state, in the process of asking them to move forward. I think any of us who've studied federal government decision-making processes know that the range of alternatives they consider is crucially important. I mean, all they really legally have to do is consider the MCCC plan and the no action alternative, and that's kind of all the alternatives they have to consider. But on bigger important issues, they sometimes consider a wider range. And I think both the comments coming from Cliff and Sarah and other people, and I think the smaller scale comments that I made are in the spirit of saying, yes, we want you to move forward with this, and we want you to consider a wider range of alternatives. Don't just look at the MCC or nothing. Look at keeping the parking lot on the same side, but not designating some of these trails, et cetera. And so I think we could craft a letter that just mentions some of the things we want them to look at, which isn't the same as endorsing those options. I'm not endorsing the A+ plan right now, for example, but I do think it's something serious and it should be carried through the decision-making process. So I'm fine with postponing. I'm fine with just writing a letter that gives them a wider range of things we would like them to look at. And I'm also fine with your original idea of having the workshop if we want to learn more. But if we wanted to save time, I think, as Sarah pointed out, I think we can just ask them to look at all these things, which is, not a strong endorsement of all those options, just saying that they should be looked at more closely.
That we want them to move forward, that this is a problem, let's start working on it. Evan? I was just going to say that was a very nice summary from Commissioner Walker, and I like that tack. And I would rather get them a letter sooner than to workshop this now, knowing that there will be future opportunities for us to participate in a planning process. So let's next check off the workshop and get a letter written that is broader, that says that we want them to look at all alternatives and all ideas. But to start doing something.
I will move to postpone this until the next meeting with the idea that we're going to get a letter that asks them to consider a wider range of alternatives, like as the chair just said. Thank you. Motion by Kevin to postpone and consider a wider range of alternatives to look at. Do I have a second? Seconded by Sarah. Okay, we have a motion by Kevin Walker, seconded by Sarah to postpone. Any discussion? Okay. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We will once again postpone this item. So let's move back to item F, adopting tentative amended to 2021 and 2022 Grand County budget and setting budget hearing dates. Chris Baird, take it over.
Mary, you skipped E.
You skipped E, yeah, you gotta go to E.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought I only skipped one. I apologize. I checked off E and then I heard Kevin's name, so thank you. Adopting volunteer board members to the Planning Commission. Tricia Dean.
I'm trying to, oh, good, there we go. I'm trying to unmute, and there we go. I'm gonna turn off my video. So the Planning Commission received, and this was a move to approve the appointment of Anthony Mancuso to serve as the Planning Commission midterm. So, well, it's not even midterm, late term, beginning today, November 3rd, 2021, and expiring at the end of the year, 12/31/2021. So the Planning Commission received 2 applications for midterm vacancy. They met in an open meeting on August 23rd and interviewed 2 applicants, Brent Northup and Anthony Mancuso, otherwise known as Tony. And at that same meeting, we voted unanimously to recommend Tony to the Planning Commission. So do you want me to make a motion, Mary?
Yes.
I move to approve the appointment of Anthony Mancuso to serve on the Planning Commission with the term beginning today and expiring on 12/31/2021. And he is fabulous.
Yes, he is. So, motion by Tricia Dean, seconded by Evan Clapper. Discussion? All in favor? You're still on. Kevin, are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, passes unanimously. We are now, thank you, Quinn. Thank you for your assistance. We are now adopting tentative amended 2021 and 22 Grand County budget and setting budget hearing date. Chris Baird.
Thank you, Mary. So the Uniform Fiscal Procedures Act for counties requires that the legislative body adopt a tentative budget at their first meeting in November. And so that's what this is about, and also set the hearing date for the amended 2021 and 2022 Grand County budgets. So we went over the tentative budget in our workshop. Happy to answer any further questions, but I think the motion in the agenda summary should suffice to cover this statutory requirement.
And that agenda summary is with our tentative, in the email with the tentative budget that we had earlier.
Yeah, so
it says, I move approve the adoption of the tentative 2022 Grand County budget and set a hearing date for the amended 21 and 22 Grand County budget for December 7th, 2021. Would anybody make that motion?
The agenda summary had it listed both December 6th, which is a Monday, and December 7th, which is a Tuesday. We wanted it on the 7th, the Tuesday.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, oops, sorry. Yeah, I see that typo. It's the 7th.
Okay, I was looking at the one in our workshop packet. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, our workshop packet. I didn't know I even made an agenda summary for that. But
you did.
The one that's for item F is the one that should be used. There is a December 6th typo regarding the when I have to make the tentative budget available to the public 10 days prior.
Yeah.
But the motion's accurate.
Okay. Were you looking for a motion still there, Madam Chair?
Well, I read the motion, and I was looking for somebody to make that first. Make the motion and somebody to second it.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Jacques, okay, motion by Evan, seconded by Jacques. Do we have discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now to item H. Adopting resolution approving the final condominium plat and subdivision improvement agreement for Murphy Flats Phase 1 and HDHO development located at 1185 Murphy Lane. Planning and zoning.
Okay.
We'll be presenting this.
I am trying to get my video going here. Sorry. Okay. Thank you, Mary. And glad to be here tonight presenting this HDHO final plat, which has been a work in progress. And I have to give a lot of credit to Mary because she's been really seeing this one through. So thank you, Mary, for all the work that you've put into this.
You're very welcome. But we couldn't have done it without you. The two of us did this. It wasn't a one-woman.
It was a team effort,
person.
for sure.
It was a real team effort.
Okay, so yep, this is an application for the final plat of Murphy Flats Phase 1 High Density Housing Overlay Condominium Development. Phase 1 proposes 4 duplex buildings, 3 quad buildings, and 24 storage units. The 20 dwelling units within these buildings will be condominiumized and separately owned. 17 of the housing units will be deed restricted per Grand County LUC section 4.7.6. There are 24 total parking spaces per the parking variance that was approved by the County Commission in Ordinance 600.01. The proposed final plat phase 1 is in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat and the master plan. The site improvements include the Murphy Lane will be widened by 8 feet on the west side of the road. Improvements will be made to remedy site distance issues and address pedestrian safety. Applicants will extend water, sewer, and power to the proposed units. Drainage ponds will be required and built. Civil plans for drainage and construction have been approved by the county engineer. So the next section in the staff report, you'll probably notice, is a little different from our recent staff reports, but this is just kind of, we're modifying our format to go back to what we used to do, or what Mary used to do especially, and what I'm used to as well in staff reports, which is to state the findings of fact. So I'll just go through the findings, and all of the evidence is there in the staff report, which if you have any questions about that, we can address those. The first finding is just the project description, which I've already stated, so I won't go through that. But the second one is the consistency with the general plan. The proposed development is an HDHO subdivision, which is not specifically mentioned in the general plan, but as the county commission, then council, adopted the approving ordinance for the HDHO districts, it is assumed to be supported by a general plan update. The following findings have to do with the conformance to the land use code. The proposed development is in conformance with LUC provisions of Article 4.7, high density housing overlay districts. The proposed development is in conformance with LUC Article 7, subdivision standards. And it's also, this development is also in conformance with the LUC Article 9, administration and procedure, including section 9.5, final plat. The planning commission, at a planning commission meeting on October 12th, 2020, they voted 6-0 to approve the preliminary plat for Murphy Flats development. Staff's recommendation is to approve this final plat. All county requirements and design criteria have been met and reviewed and approved by staff. Are there any questions from the commission?
Questions?
I have a brief comment. It's not so much about this particular one, but I recognize the ease of kind of going back to findings and statements of fact.
Yeah.
And this is an administrative procedure, so it's more like, have they checked all the boxes? But I think with a lot of the approvals that come to this body, part of the reason they come here is there are things of like impacts to neighborhoods and things like that that are much more subjective. And I appreciate having those kind of like highlights and summaries for those of us who have not necessarily been following all the planning commission meetings closely and the staff meetings and stuff. So having a summary of some of those more subjective things included in the report's beneficial for me when those decisions come up.
Okay, yeah, noted. We can definitely add that back in.
Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
I move to adopt the findings of fact set forth in the staff report dated October 26, 2021, and proposed resolution approving the final condominium plat and subdivision improvements agreement for Murphy Flats Phase 1 HDHO development with the following conditions. 1, continued compliance with the county engineer's requirements, ordinance number 599 HDHO 15 master plan and related development agreement. 2, the owner shall record the SIA and CCR's simultaneous with the final plat in the recorder's office. And 3, the owner shall submit an acceptable completion assurance bond for the incomplete public improvements and infrastructure warranty bond for completed accepted public improvements as established in the SIA to the county in the amount set forth in the SIA prior to recordation of the final plat.
Thank you, Gabriel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Evan. Discussion.
This was
I'm
a long
happy
time
this
coming
come
for
to
sure.
fruition. Excuse me, Evan?
I was just saying this one was a long time coming. A lot of these folks were very involved in the creation of the high density housing overlay itself.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank the developers for their stick-to-itiveness and having this happen. Where I'm very, very pleased. So, any other comments? A call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
Yay!
Okay, we are to item I, approving employee paid premium rates for 2022 health insurance. Renee.
Yes, I get to come back, and you heard Chris kind of bring this up in the budget workshop. But since our last meeting with our insurance renewal, and Dana showing that the packet had the incorrect numbers, we've done some digging and found out through our brokers that Cigna never loaded our 2021 rates into their system. So they've quoted us off of our 2020 rates. They've been charging us our 2020 rates all year. And they've agreed to the 6.98% increase on those 2020 premium rates. So we get a discount this year. I do expect that that won't be the same going into 2022, or I'm sorry, into 2023. But since they've quoted us, that's what they've agreed to. So with this motion, we just wanted to freeze the employee paid premium rates as they were in 2021, so that the employees will have no increases there as well. In the last packet, it was proposed, in the last motion on the insurance renewal, it was proposed that that go up to 6.98%. But since we're not seeing that increase on this 2021 rates, we would just like to freeze the 2022 rates for the employees.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Questions? I'll entertain a motion.
May I make a motion, Mary?
Certainly.
Oh, hey, Doc, before you do this, just to add on to this, we might want to, as part of the motion, just say that we're rescinding the action from whatever the prior meeting was, and then move into the motion, so that it's clear that we're rescinding the prior approval.
So that would have been.
So that was
November 19th. I mean, October 19th. Rescinding a motion from October 19th.
Preface the motion, I move to rescind prior action on October 19th and to approve the Grant County Medical, et cetera.
I move to rescind the prior motion on October 19th and move to approve the Grand County Medical Insurance renewal with Cigna with the updated employee paid premium rates for 2022 Cigna traditional medical insurance plan. Monthly cost to the employee of $117.64 for single, $150.27 for two-party, and $290.35 for families.
Thank you, Jacques. Do I have a second? Seconded by Trish. Discussion?
No, but I do want to tell you that I've already let Dana know that she's the bomb for catching that glitch. So that's pretty cool.
And thank you, Renee, for following up with her too. I mean, that was listening and he's saying, oh, I think this person is worth following up, because I did email you and ask you if that happened, and you said yes. So thank you. And thank you for pointing that out. I hope she hears that she was recognized. Oh,
Yes, I will let her know. They will actually be issuing a refund for their paid premiums for the year as well. So since they pay us.
that is great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We are to consent agenda. Approving a contract with J. Approving a contract with Flooring America for main lobby flooring at Old Spanish Trail Arena in the amount of $12,165. Ratifying chair's signature on amended letter to support for the county's Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant application. Ratifying chair's signature on a grant application for American Rescue Plan Act funding through the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Coronavirus Response Grant Program. Ratifying the chair's signature on a contract between the U.S. Forest Service and Grand County for law enforcement officer services on the LaSalle Mountains. Approving emergency purchase of a new hot water heater and plumbing labor, Frank Vaccaro Plumbing for the Grand Center in the amount of $12,500. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved, Mary.
Thank you. Motion by Jacques. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Evan. Discussion? All in favor? Aye, raise your hand.
I vote.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. We have reached the end of our action items, and we are now to discussion items, calendar and special event. Mallory.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm doing the computer thing. So I don't know if it's the appropriate time for us. We have the doodle poll for the different workshops in November. I don't know if we want to go through that. There's quite a few dates, but there are a number of promising ones. Just let me know how you want to do that, and you want to do it now.
So you're asking if we want to go through and make sure that we're comfortable with the dates for the budget workshops, correct?
Well, actually, I guess there's a number of days and times and different folks that could chime in if they want to attend or if they're going to miss it, and that's okay. Or we could just have Chris look this over and see what's best for him.
Can you bring up the doodle poll results on a shared screen? Since we're getting, it's only almost 6, we have a little time to figure this out. Might want to try to just nail down these workshop dates now. If we can pull up the doodle. Not everyone will probably be able to make every meeting, but we'll try and get them to where at least most people can make them.
Were we aiming for 1 a week or 2 a week or 5 a week?
Well, I think that we should schedule 3 more at least. And if we don't need 3, then we'll just, not do 3.
Yeah.
But could be 3 more. But let's just try to nail down 3 more at least. And then we can, get the Zoom meeting and the noticing and everything done for them.
Sure.
For next week, I think I would prefer to have it later in the week, just so I have a little time to recover and process what I've done so far. If it were early in the week, I might not have enough time to actually be prepared.
Are you guys working Veterans Day, or is that a long holiday, or?
Let's see, what is it?
That it's on the calendar as the 11th, the Thursday.
I can't remember.
That is
Renee
UAC,
or
right?
Mallory would probably be able to answer which holidays we honor.
Yeah, we're off Thursday, but
I have
that's
no
actually
idea.
UAC. So some people will be at UAC. I'll be at UAC. I think.
Anyway, let's see. I assume Mallory's looking for the doodle poll.
I am. The
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and it goes on. So
That's yeah.
I can walk us through kind of a summary as we do this, Chris, so we don't have to look at every time.
Well, that's.
but
I mean, what about next Thursday and Friday? Is there what's the availability for the 11th and the 12th?
The Friday is looking pretty bad, and on Wednesday.
So the 11th
No, you
is the
didn't.
holiday, though, right? Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot for Wednesday. Thursday, if it's a holiday. Sorry, there are so many of these.
How does Monday the 15th look?
My screen isn't reflecting your changes.
But what's Monday the 15th look like?
Monday looks very good. There are a few times that 7 commissioners can attend.
That sounds
That would
like
be
all of us.
9:30. Just missing one. Let me. It sounds like I'll do it this way. Monday is out of the question for the sake of Chris's well-being.
Okay. Monday's out of the question. Okay.
Well,
Tuesday,
for Monday the 8th, not the 15th. I mean, we could.
I was saying Monday the 15th. Yeah.
We skip next week. If we did Monday the let me look. So Monday the 15th. Probably work for me, and then we'd want to schedule somehow 2 more after that.
What?
So if we went with Monday, 9:30, 10 o'clock, or alternatively 3:30, look like they would be pretty good for everyone.
So I would, yeah, so...
How about 3:30? Give Chris some time after the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be good, I think. Let me look at...
There was also a good amount of availability on Tuesday.
Yeah, the thing about Monday afternoon is we have a meeting Tuesday, so I don't know. Personal schedule wise, if you need to prep Monday afternoon for Tuesday's meeting, or if that all happens Tuesday morning, or.
I mean, we could also, I don't know what the agenda is going to be like for the 16th. I mean, we could always tag a workshop on top of the meeting.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too.
You know, we're pretty used to that. We're pretty used to doing that, so that would work because we've all gotten pretty used to having our workshops at 2 o'clock on the day of our.
Okay, and so then, if that works for everybody, let's just plan on tagging a workshop on the 16th to our regular meeting.
Okay.
So then let's look, Mallory, at the week after that, the week of the 22nd, 21st, 22nd.
It looks like the 22nd and 23rd aren't great for people. Same with the 24th. We could kind of dig into times where 4 commissioners are available, but I'm guessing we do need one that week, right, Chris?
Say that again?
Should we do 2, Chris, on that week of the 15th through 19th?
We could. I mean, we could possibly do one. We could possibly do one on the 16th and then another on Friday, maybe, or something. I don't know what the availability is looking like, but I mean, it would be, like I say, it'd be good to schedule at least 3 of these, but it would probably be okay to do one near the end of the month too, because just the way that the first Tuesday falls, it's going to end up, the first Tuesday is on the 7th. And so if we did, a workshop near the end of November, that would still give me a week to wrap everything up and get it all battened down. But, one thing is, wherever we're at 10 days prior to the 7th, I, have to have a budget available to the public. That doesn't mean that it can't change. It can change all the way up until December 31, but anyway.
There's a good amount of
10.
availability on the 29th.
I could be available the 29th. I think 10 days, just so you know, Chris, is like the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I don't know how
I mean,
much it's on.
Because we have, because we have the budget software, I can run a budget report anytime that anybody asks. So it's not like a big deal to.
Okay.
It's not an issue really, because we're far enough along that any little tweaks that we make, can easily be. I can run a report pretty easy anytime. Yeah. So I think if we did one the 16th and then figured out another one for the week after that, and then one, 29th or 30th, that would probably be enough to finish it all off. And maybe we wouldn't even have to do the last one if we could get everything squared away on the first 2, but should plan for 3.
If we did it on the 22nd, that would probably work better for a lot of people, just because a lot of people might be traveling or having company come in for for Thanksgiving. So if we did one on the 22nd.
How's the 22nd looking, Mallory?
Maybe we should just solidify the 29th if we're going to do that one before we move from it. Or is that not?
The 22nd doesn't look great, but I highlighted some times on the 29th. There's actually 2 times when everybody indicated they could attend. I can go to Tuesday if you'd like.
All right, so for the 29th, we've got 3 or 3:30 start time. Is that right? It's looking the best. How about 3 then? Start at 3 on the 29th.
Okay.
Okay, let's reel back to the prior week and see if we can figure out one for that.
I was thinking the 22nd would be best if we could do it on that Monday.
Excuse me.
There's too many columns here. Okay.
I don't want to derail the conversation. I think we should wrap it up, or get to the conclusion of where we need to. But I just wanted to make mention of a 6 p.m. citizens to be heard, and so that we don't forget about doing that.
All right, thanks, Gabe. We could do a 10 on the 22nd.
10 on the 22nd? Okay. So the 16th at 2, the 22nd at 10, and the 29th at 3. Is that what we decided?
Is it the 22nd or 23rd? Sorry.
I thought it was the 22nd, Monday, the 22nd.
Well, that's what Mary suggested. I don't know if there's a better day in that week, but because it looks like 3 commissioners can't make it. We barely have a quorum.
Well, how about, can more come on the 23rd? Can more come on the 23rd?
It's the same.
It's I'll be with family then. I'll likely be able to call in, but it's hard for me to say now what exactly my schedule will be like.
And I'm in the same boat as Evan. I'll be traveling with family. I likely can attend, but I couldn't guarantee it. And for me, later in the day on those 2 days would probably be better.
Okay, so
Second, it looks like after 1:30 to 5:30 is pretty good for 4 commissioners.
well, these are 2-hour meetings probably, so I wouldn't want to start later than 3.
Yeah, that's the latest start time. Or 3:30.
What day are we discussing now? The 23rd?
Or the 22nd? Which one?
Well, or the 23rd. I don't know. I can't really see what the 22nd's what's up right now. And Jacques, you said that if you could make it, it would be preferable in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it looks like the 22nd is the way to go, unless we do it in the morning on the 23rd.
So what time on the 22nd? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock?
On the 22nd, the spreadsheet's kind of hard to.
Anytime 1:30 to 3 o'clock start time.
Any time afternoon would be okay for me.
Okay. Maybe. Well, we got 1:30 to 3. Anybody have a preference on that?
1:30.
All right, let's do 1:30 on the 22nd then.
Okay, so I have it that we're doing it Tuesday, the 16th at 2, Monday, the 22nd at 1:30, and what was it on, what day was the 29th? Was that
3 p.m., I think, right?
3 p.m. and 3 p.m. on the 29th. Okay, good. We got it.
All right. Okay, I think that covers that. And then, do you want to do citizens to be heard before Mallory finishes calendar?
How close are you to finishing calendar? Do we have any citizens to be heard? Let's find out.
We have one at least. Julianne Waters wants to speak.
Well, let's just do it because it's 6 o'clock. So let's listen to and then finish calendar and close. Julianne?
Hello. I am raising my voice along with the others that have spoken about what's happening out in Spanish Valley regarding illegal camping. I have, in short, I live on a dead-end street and I'm the middle house. The end house sold about 1.5 years ago to a gentleman who moved here from Virginia, who immediately started moving campers and trailers onto the property. I had a concern for my safety due to the numbers of cars and coming and going and people walking in from the street. And so I purchased a security system, which has reflected upwards of days of 30 cars coming and going on this short dead-end street. I've been in touch with Christina Sloan several times. The latest message from her was there's really nothing that can be done about it because this person presented 3 rental agreements to the county indicating that he is within his rights, which is ludicrous given there's at least 8 campers and trailers back there and also people living in the house. My concern is not only for my safety, but also sanitation concerns. I don't know where they're dumping their waste out of these trailers that they're living in. And quite honestly, the traffic, I just got a bling right now. Here's another camper leaving and he'll be back. I mean, this is 24 hours a day. I've really lost any quiet enjoyment of my property. I've lost any privacy that I've had. And I've called the sheriff several times because of noise and loose dogs that have been running. So I don't know where to go with this. Christina, as I said, has talked to Josh about it, and he came out, and apparently it's up to me to prove that he's doing illegal activity, which I don't think is proper per se, but I also don't know. My suggestion would be to, instead of trying to prosecute people, because I realize that's a lengthy and very detailed process, would be to, I mean, they're obviously just flying in the face of the ordinances, and you know, establish a warning system where that ends up being a very substantial monetary ticket, like $10,000 if they don't comply. They're really just, it's the whole beg forgiveness rather than ask permission thing. And the man there is very charming, and he's managed to charm a lot of people, but he doesn't charm me. And that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Mallory?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay. Thank you. Would you, let's complete our calendar.
Yes, as mentioned, November 11th will be closed for Veterans Day and for special events. I'll be honest, I haven't had a moment to look, but we can update the calendar and send it out.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a question. So I know that on the 10th of November, there's the land use open house from like 3 to 7 at the Grand Center. And I was also invited to the Unified Master Trails Plan open house that same day at 6 at the Grand Center. Are those events happening together, or is that, yeah, I guess is that coordinated on purpose? I guess John isn't here. He might be the one to know.
We can find out and let you all know.
That's okay. I mean, I'll just show up, but I just thought it was weird that they were like at the same time, at the same place.
Yeah, that is weird. They must be together.
Okay. Anything else, Mallory? Okay, we have reached
all that I have right now.
Thank you. We have reached the end of our agenda. There's no public hearing or closed session. If no one objects, we will adjourn. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Early.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Mary. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mallory.
Yes.